builds its own destiny. A nation driven by innovation, anchored in self-reliance, and powered by the courage of its creators. Today, that spirit sets sail once again. This is the dawn of Swavlamban-2025. Organized by the Naval Innovation and Indigenization Organization, NIIO, Swavlamban-2025 is where India's brightest minds gather. Startups, MSMEs and industry leaders to solve real challenges faced at sea. It's a confluence of creativity and courage, where the Navy's needs inspire national innovation. Through initiatives like the IDEX Challenge, the Indian Navy opens new frontiers for innovators across the nation. Ideas nurtured in startups, research hubs, and young minds are transformed into mission-ready technologies. Through close guidance, rigorous testing, and collaboration with NIIO, each innovation realized becomes a capability gained, a stride towards Atmanirbhar Bharat at sea. From fire-resistant gear that saves lives to autonomous drones that scout the horizon, from underwater sensors to digital command tools, innovation here isn't theoretical, it's operational. Every prototype refined at Swavlamban finds purpose with the Navy. That's the power of Indian innovation, tested on Indian decks. At Swavlamban, the Navy doesn't stand apart. It stands beside.
Working with the Indian Navy through IDEX has been a wonderful journey.
We are very grateful for Ministry of Defence, IDEX, DIO, Indian Army, Indian Navy and Indian Air Force.
The Navy's guidance and support have been truly inspiring.
We thank you Navy, IDEX and IDEX for giving us opportunity.
Every breakthrough here fuels a larger dream. The journey from Atmanirbhar Bharat to Viksit Bharat 2047. Swavlamban 2025, where India's ideas power her oceans and her oceans power her future. Strength and power through innovation and indigenization. नवाचार एवं स्वदेशीकरण से सशक्तिकरण.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I, Commander Ishant Panwar, welcome you to the second day of Swavlamban 2025. Today, we have two interactive sessions scheduled in the forenoon session. The first session on future and emerging technologies is scheduled from 10:30 hours to 11:30 hours, post which we shall break off for a short tea break till 1200 hours. We shall then resume with the second session on boosting the IDEX ecosystem. On completion of the session, we shall proceed for lunch at 13:30 hours. The participants are encouraged to ask questions at the end of both the sessions. Please raise your hands, introduce yourself, and a mic will be handed over to you. May I now request the panelists of the first session to kindly take their seats on the stage as I introduce them. The session will be moderated by Admiral K.B. Singh, PVSM, AVSM, Chairman NMF, former Chief of the Naval Staff. The Admiral was India's 24th Chief of the Naval Staff from June 2018 to March 2021. He assumed chairmanship of the National Maritime Foundation, New Delhi, on 17th January 2022. He is also the Distinguished Chair at the Naval War College, Goa. Our second panelist, Professor Debashish Ghosh, is presently an honorary professor in the Department of Aerospace Design at the Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru. He has been a professor at the IIC in both the Aerospace and the Cyber Physical Systems departments. He has also held visiting positions in several universities, including the University of California at Los Angeles. He has been a member of the editorial boards of several journals and IEEE transactions. Our third panelist, Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan, is the principal investigator at BharatGen, India's government-backed multimodal sovereign AI initiative to build sovereign, multilingual, and multimodal AI for 22 Indian languages. A distinguished academic and innovator, he brings over 2 decades of experience at the intersection of core research, applied AI, and systems deployment, making him one of India's foremost voices in inclusive digital transformation. The fourth panelist, Professor S.A. Ramakrishna, is the Dean of the School of Science at Geetham University and a professor of physics. Earlier at IIT Kanpur, known for his pioneering work in optics, photonics, and metamaterials. His research combines theoretical and experimental approaches to understand how light interacts with complex materials and engineering them for advanced technological real-life applications. His foundational work on metamaterials for radar stealth has led to the product Analaksha that has been successfully field-tested for shielding ground assets from SAR imaging, as well as thermal, IR, and EO camouflage. To commence the session, I hand over the dais to the moderator. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. It's such an honor and pleasure to be amongst all of you. I wish to begin by congratulating, the NIIO, TDAC, DIO, the startups, industry, academia, directorates at naval headquarters, and others for achieving so much. It's just been, a few years since we set up the NIIO, and today the progress has been truly spectacular. It makes me, and I'm sure all of you, very proud of this achievement. The topic for today's interactive session is future and emerging technologies. And when we talk of future and emerging technologies, it's all about cutting-edge technologies and innovation. It's an area where ideas are generated, brought to fruition, based on the user's problem statements and imagination of future combat requirements. And all this is enabled by the academics and all the, the wise men sitting on the dais, academics and industry by their scientific knowledge and expertise. So I'm really truly excited to be moderating this session. I've been given 10 minutes to set the scene for what I'm sure would be 3 really riveting presentations from our very eminent scientists and scholars in the panel. And I thought I'd make 2 points for your consideration. The first relates to something called the qualitative superiority in innovation. One of the officers who's doing the Naval Higher Command course in the Naval War College, Captain Yashu Agarwal, he's written an interesting paper that recommends an innovation strategy to leapfrog or, like that pole vault of sprint over adversaries by rendering their technological advantage obsolete. His view is that the mindset that traps India today is lag pursuit. This should shift radically towards sovereign innovation. And his contention is that leapfrogging is not a shortcut, but an optimized path to reach the goal faster than anyone else. What he says is if you continuously chase parity, it ends up in a trap because it locks you in a lag pursuit, wherein the adversary dictates the tempo of innovation. What he implies is stop trying to match, but go further. And he takes an example of aerial combat, wherein if you engage in a lag pursuit, you can't close the gap. Basically, you can't close a technological gap with an adversary through replication. That's what he's trying to say. Because the superior adversary would always benefit from accumulated momentum that is already there. So this lag pursuit or imitation trap is therefore not the optimal way to go. He suggests lead pursuit for innovation, leading the lag, meaning accepting that parity is unlikely and choosing to convert that reality into advantage by exploring domains where, for example, we can reap disproportionate returns. Basically investing in asymmetric capabilities that yield disproportionate returns. In case I'm talking a whole lot of gibberish, just an example, simple example is China's quantum radar. That has rendered or will render US lead in low observable designs ineffective, the stealth designs. When we look at types of innovation, one is incremental, that means you improve the existing systems. The second is disruptive, that means you introduce new technologies. The third is architectural, which means you reconfigure known components. But the one that we should ideally aim for when looking at the future and emerging technologies is, to my mind, radical innovation. One which creates breakthroughs that render adversaries' strengths obsolete. So this is my first point as I think about it. This paper by Captain Agarwal also set me thinking. How could we put more emphasis on radical innovations and lead pursuit, especially in future and emerging technologies? Also remember what the RM said yesterday, Raksha Mantri, in the inaugural session. He said, you set a challenge for us. Dream and suggest new ideas. So based on what I have told you about radical innovation and based on RM's challenge thrown yesterday, I thought I would share one such idea for innovation. It might seem a little bit, I'm allowed to dream. These are people who are going to actually do the hard work. A few years ago, I'd seen this very captivating movie called My Octopus Teacher. I don't know how many of you have seen it. I'm sure many of you would have seen it, and I'm sure if you haven't seen it, you must see it. The octopus is one of ocean's most adaptable, intelligent, decentralized, and stealth-capable animals. These are the topics that we are going to discuss today. And octopus is adept at operating in even the most dangerous maritime threat scenarios. The beauty is that it is evolved in the same operating environment as naval forces operate and expect to operate. An environment that is contested, sensor-rich, and hostile, just like the modern maritime battle space. And therefore, to my mind, provides one model for replicating and innovating. The octopus has distributed intelligence and edge computing. Each arm has a semi-autonomous neural control. Each arm can act independently, can sense, decide, and act locally without waiting for central brain inputs. So naval application that it could inspire, and it's already inspiring, would include distributed autonomy in UUVs, USV swarms, local decision-making at the tactical edge, and reduced reliance on communications in contested electromagnetic environments. And this will enable resilient operation in GPS-denied and jammed waters, which is a very increasingly likely scenario that we'll be facing. The octopus is master of stealth because it can change color, texture, posture, and its silhouette to blend and confuse. Basically adaptive stealth. It has got multi-spectral stealth, an adaptive hull coating to alter acoustic signature, heat signature, radar or sonar reflections, and shape-shifting design. This should give us an idea, ideas on adaptive platform coatings, dynamic acoustic and thermal signature management, and next-generation stealth. What I mean by next-generation stealth is basically stealth that is expanding beyond hull design towards active, adaptive signature management inspired by cephalopod skin. The octopus's multi-modal, I'm not making a pitch for octopus, but I'm just trying to give you an idea. Octopus's multimodal locomotion, wherein it crawls, hovers, jets, and repositions with exceptional maneuverability and silence. It's a very silent movement. Can inspire hybrid propulsion for UUVs, hull designed optimized for maneuvering and littoral dominance in cluttered or shallow waters, especially in undersea operations in highly contested environments. The octopus has regeneration capabilities. Basically, limbs that are lost can be generated. It is capable of regrowing limbs, surviving partial injury. And this idea, I think, can form the basis for modular ship or UUV architecture, common replaceable components, and survivable swarms that maintain mission integrity. Basically, systems capable of absorbing damage and continuing the mission. So I just listed out a few of the unique characteristics of the octopus. Aren't these characteristics what we desire in our future maritime force? Aren't these the lessons from octopus biomimicry for our, aren't there any lessons for this for our future force? And I think biomimicry, though not new, we've had people like Icarus and all that, is something that our innovators who are sitting here could think about more seriously. This would, I'll just give you some more examples. This would include drag-reducing riblets, hull forms, and silent propulsion designs from sharks, low-frequency long-range communication from whales, autonomous drone swarms from schooling fish, magnetic undersea and GPS independent navigation from turtles, energy-conserving operations for long endurance buoys from jellyfish, and since I am an aviator, from the hummingbird that basically articulates and rotates its wings while flapping in a figure of 8, thus generating lift both during downstroke and upstroke, which is the only bird that does that, and which results in double efficiency. And this should be useful for innovators manufacturing flapping drones. So I'll leave you with these thoughts and hand over the floor to our eminent speakers. I know it sounds like a dream, but the fact is that I think it's worthy of consideration by our innovators. And I will hand over now to the speakers, and I'll request each speaker to speak for 10 minutes. You can either speak from the podium or you can speak from the chair. And then we'll open up the house for interaction. Thank you. Our first speaker is Professor Debashish Ghosh from IISc Bangalore, and he'll speak to us on the subject of AI, era of edge computing, and swarm warfare.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me over here to give this lecture. And as Admiral Singh had said, that 10 minutes is all that we have for this. So I'll try to confine myself to that. Before I start, I just want to comment on something. I'm so happy that he mentioned about the lag pursuit and lead pursuit. I belong to the aerospace engineering department, and we design guidance laws. So I completely understand what he's talking about, except just one point, that even lead pursuit in guidance has a problem. What betters that is called proportional navigation, which means that you don't try to just lead your competitor, but also better the rate at which the innovation happens. And if you do that, then you are going to overtake him sooner or later. With that, let me start. So I'm going to talk about AI, era of edge computing, and edge computing and swarm warfare. So there are some critical applications that we are going to talk about here. One is the intelligent unmanned vehicles. Intelligent unmanned vehicles can be used for various kind of applications like drone swarms. They can be used for surveillance, and they also must have capabilities like being able to avoid collision when they are used in very large numbers. So we will touch upon many of these things and also see what makes these swarms intelligent. So when you talk about intelligence, any aircraft that you see will become intelligent provided these 5 things are there on: structure, propulsion, control, sensors, communication, and so on. So these are just the basic wherewithal with which we can design intelligent systems. So you can have UAV swarms, you can have USVs and UAVs, they can connect with each other and coordinate and then take decisions. So there are a lot of things that are happening around the world. India is a part of that. There are a lot of, from small nations like Israel to large nations like India and US, drone companies and autonomous system companies are proliferating. What is the difference between autonomy and intelligence? So if you look at this picture, you see the first one that we have here is, you see the non-autonomous system already has a path defined for it. It just avoids the obstacle and goes away. The autonomous system detects the obstacle and then it moves around it. But an intelligent system does something more. It not just detects the obstacle, but also determines the nature of the obstacle, and based on that, it takes a decision. For example, if the obstacle is something that can have a very large radius of lethality, then it will take a larger detour around it. If not, it will take a smaller detour. So that's a decision that it takes, and that is what makes it intelligent. Other kind of intelligence is looking at an object, identifying what the object is about and what it can do. This is just a lesson. In 2017, the US Department of Defense brought out a roadmap for autonomous systems. So I just want you to look at this table. So what they said in 2017 is that persistent sensing and highly autonomous sensing and swarming is something that is into the future, 2042. The truth is, it is right now here. So you can see the rate at which innovation happens. In 2017, what was predicted to be true in 2042 is right on our doorstep. We haven't reached it, but it's just a matter of a couple of years that we'll be able to do this. So this is an object lesson in why we should not just rest and think that what we know now is good enough to take us forward for the next few years. We have to think ahead. Similarly here too, when we talk about human-machine collaboration, we don't trust machines all the time. We must have human-machine collaboration. There also you see the far-term goal in 2042 is infer human intent, deep learning machines. They are right here now in 2025. We don't have to wait for 2042 for them. So this is again a lesson that we have to learn from. Using drone swarms, unfortunately, I couldn't get you the videos, but you would have seen that using the drone swarms, you can have multiple, tens of drones that can go around, coordinate with each other, and do inspection of ships, do firefighting, go around tall buildings, and so on. So we have these algorithms, they are developed, and they have been simulated, and some of them are now undergoing field experiments. So different types of buildings can be surveyed using these kind of things. Even moving structure like ships. If there is a ship that you want to get details of, you want to track it, you can send your drones and do so. Collision detection and avoidance. So we have a system called Concord with which you can do the collision detection avoidance using a very deep concept called correlated equilibrium in game theory. So this is a very deep theory, but it has been actually implemented and used. So this tells you that theory is not always on paper, but it can also be converted into practical applications. So this is a system where this Concord is now merged with UTM, that is Unmanned Traffic Management System, and how that can be done is also something that we have done, and it's work in progress. One of the main things that we have is, suppose we have a large number of drones and we want to send them somewhere. So we don't want them to stray. So we need corridors in the sky, just the way we need roads. So how do we do that? So this is where we actually define something called a corridor system, where we have, if you see that, there is a UAV mobility corridor, which is nothing but a block of air that moves in the air in a cylinder, in a virtual cylinder. So we have this system called Corridrone, that is corridor for drones. It could be used for other things also. So we use the notion of geofencing to build these corridors. So these are the different aspects of the block of air that moves along with the drone in these corridors. So these are the different ways, depending on what is the capability of the drone, we do all this. We can do space-to-ship transportation using the corridor concept. We can do geofence loops. I think we'll just do this. So this is the complete architecture of the system. It has AI, it has edge computing, everything as a part of it. We use local collision avoidance, which can do collision avoidance if there are a large number of swarm drones. We have this experiment in 2-lane corridors that has been carried out. This is the GUI for the ground control station. We have this airfield experiment that shows these virtual corridors and the aircraft that goes around it. The video is not embedded here, so you can't see that, but you can see that it works in that. So we have these airfield experiments with 1, 2, and multiple drones. So there is a UBIX Automatica. This is a kind of a system that actually does UAV traffic management, and which implements all the drone corridor systems. So this is also a part of our development is a Stigmergics, which allows drones to carry, 4 drones to carry a heavy weight, like stretchers in a military operation. We have designed this UAV ground control station, which can control anywhere between single drone to 50 drones at a time. So this is portable, a soldier can carry it and then use that to control drones. So communication is important, so we have both 5G and 4G. Provided these supports are available, we can have them. Edge computing in distributed swarms is very important because we need to conserve the power that we have. So we need to do the computing right at the place where the data is collected. So we have a generic master-slave topology where we have this detailed internal view of how this system works there. We have a software-defined radio there. Similarly, we have a different kind of topologies, master-slave topology like this. So master distributes the task and the slaves carry out the task from there. And these are some of the innovations that we have done in the area of AI, edge computing, and in swarm systems. If time permits, we can talk more details, but this is just a gist of what we did, and this is what the future is going to be, and I hope that this is what will help us to take our nation forward in this particular area. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Professor. It was nice to see how all the predictions they were completely put on their head because of also one of the reasons that Moore's law also has been, I think, put on its head. So may I now invite our second speaker, Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan from IIT Bombay. He'll speak to us on sovereign LLM for hybrid warfare.
Thank you again. Honor to be here. This is not possible without the strong support of the entire ecosystem, including Ministry of IT, DST. I've listed several of them will come up in the discussion. Now, sovereign LLM for hybrid warfare. What is sovereignty? There is a political aspect of sovereignty. Quoting from Acharya Chanakya, the happiness of subjects lies the king's happiness. But there is a functional aspect of sovereignty, which is the translation of what and why to the how, right? Which requires material systems. Now, the GPUs for building large language models are basically the bulk of the expense in building these models. Unless we have the functional sovereignty in terms of technology, supply, economy, infrastructural independence, and obviously the knowledge systems, the co-design with the stakeholders, which also means there's a people and the territory, the law, policy, sensitivity of the models, you will not be able to do what was being alluded to as proportional navigation in the space by Professor Ghosh. Right? So sovereign LLMs enable innovation. Right? While we want to go leapfrogging from the word go, the challenge is unless you do some of the benchmarking and recipe building, you will not be in a position to leapfrog. So this is the ecosystem that is actually required to bring sovereign LLMs for hybrid warfare. The first is recipes and indigenous models. But along with that, you need to ensure that these are powering technology development through research, which is the second pillar. The third pillar is incorporation of knowledge, and this is not possible with close collaboration with the stakeholders. So at IIT Bombay, we have a Center for Defense Technology Innovations and Strategy, CDTIS. We also have a Maharashtra drone mission. all the work we do in LLMs is in collaboration with them, and obviously this is an open call for participation. And this is a virtuous cycle. We're able to go back and bring in data into the model building exercise. How do you make this happen? Let's start with the first part. The first pillar, which is building glass boxes rather than black boxes, which are these large language models. Now, going back to 2017, Ashish Vaswani and his team, an Indian, right, they brought out this very interesting innovation called the transformer. Attention is all you need. What is this? I have a simple example here. Sonar systems are vital for maritime defense. Everyone here in the audience is in a position to try and complete this sentence. Hence, Atmanirbharta in sonar systems is important, right? That's possibly how you complete. How does a model get trained? Well, it is through something called query key value based attention. So you have a query which is hence, which is attending the Q matrix there. This is the only equation in the entire slides. This is going to attend to all the potential keys in the preceding words, all represented through vectors. And this gives you weights associated with the values on what are potentially going to help predict the next set of words. This can be extended to vision, to geospatial data, the same principle, right? And you're training the model in a self-supervision manner. Now, this is also interesting because a recent paper, October 2025, has shown that there is a lot of injective mapping preserved, which means if you look at the intermediate layers of this large memory bank called the transformer, you're able to kind of recover the source. Not only is the memory part here, you would also heard of mixture of experts from DeepSeek, the feed-forward neural network, which is at the top. When it's composed as a mixture of experts, it also brings in the ability to have resource-friendly computation through reasoning, which means through attribution of what computation is attributed to which expert. So mixture of experts comes the feed-forward neural network. But then that's not all. The co-design principle is what I've seen flash attention. A lot of innovation on how you kind of structure the entire quadratic complexity across a very memory-friendly HBM and a compute-friendly SRAM. And how do you ensure that these two are reflected in algorithm design? So flash attention 1 did something called tiling, sliced these query key value pairs. Flash attention 2 went ahead and said, well, what if we do a loop inversion? And not only that, it also did a lot of improvisation in the way these computations are done. Flash attention 3 brought in block quantization. Now and a lot of scheduling with respect to the warp, the way the entire CPU, the tensor, which is all responsible for the non-matrix multiplication, and the matrix multiplication operations, and the CUDA, which is responsible for the non-matrix multiplication operations. Now, this trilogy is inspirational, but what do you do locally? So, thankfully, the India AI mission and the Department of Science and Technology trusted in our efforts and helped set up this BharatGen, India's sovereign GenAI ecosystem. It's a call for participation. The mission and urgency is because if we have to target 2047, we really need to make sure that we are doing cutting-edge research and leapfrogging in this space while being sovereign and culturally sensitive. It's anchored as a Section 8 company at IT Bombay with 10 academic consortium members. We have 60 experts. We've got top talent back from the US into India. There's a good example of what is possible, but there's a lot of work to be done, long way to go, with a total funding of 123.6 crore. Because it's anchored in a Section 8 company, delivery is very important. And all the models are available on Hugging Face and AI Coach. Now, the second pillar, how does research enable leapfrogging? If you look at attention, which is quadratic, and state space models, which came later, which have not yet seen the light of the day in these large models, the state space models make this into a fixed size vector instead of quadratic attention, and they get an order n complexity, which is very welcome. But explainability is lost. So how do you marry the two? In computer science, there's a concept of no free lunch. You don't get anything for free. So it's a trade-off, right? Understanding this trade-off is actually as important. For example, when you're training a large language model, The initial phases of the training, self-supervision, would require you to reinforce concepts in the model, whereas in the later stages of the model, the figure on the right, top left, you would like the model to be exposed to more diversity. But what is that right inflection point? Mind you, today's large language model training is extremely inefficient. How do you bring efficiency and reasoning, as was alluded to by Professor Ghosh? On the other hand, if you look at the right side, data efficiency, you have massive training corpora. Is there a subset of the data that is effective enough to train these models? How many bulbs should you have lit in this room so that the illumination is effective in this room, right? So it's a problem of subset selection. You also have adaptive intelligence, where a model which is in its nascent stages could actually give insight into how the model would be when it evolves with the data. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip to the third pillar. This is very important. How do you, hybrid warfare is not possible without co-design. So I talked about the two missions we work closely with, understanding human intent. To have hybrid warfare, while we can have perception, knowledge, collaboration, and this is what we did maybe almost a decade back, we built a whole bunch of technology for adding intelligence to cameras. And now there are plenty of companies in this space. But thankfully, our work was recognized. We worked closely with the Naval Dockyard, Visakhapatnam, Karwar, and Kochi. And this entire work also won us a lot of appreciation. We won National E-Governance Gold Award. The important thing is it got deployed. It got widespread appreciation right in our campus. Obviously, charity begins at home. It was used during COVID for surveillance. But this is just the first layer, right? The actual part is cognition. That's where things are today. Cognition, action, making it actionable because you anticipate the next movement. That's very important, right? And that's when you can also do reflection and evaluation, right? So coordinated use of cyber, information, electromagnetic, economic, and autonomous system attacks. Just building upon Professor Ghosh's example, if you have basically a whole army of drones, how do you do short-term density mapping? How do you have 3D reconstruction, vision, based on computer vision, and bring in long-term mapping, map it to slams, ensure that in that process, the communication through ultra-wideband short-range UWB, is actually being co-designed. The algorithm for communication is co-designed with the model interpolation. And then finally, coordinated swarm navigation. Here's an example of a dynamic target being chased by a swarm. The swarm, the ones in red at the front and the ones in the ones in blue are at the front of chasing the white target. The ones in the red are following the blue. The swarm navigation also needs you to do very effective edge computation, which again Professor Ghosh pointed to. Now there are some very good startups. We work closely with MiFi. They have done excellent work. MiFi, Micromax and Phison joint venture, they try to come up with this MiFi card, AI adaptive card, which lets you do sharding of these large models, right? So that you can actually augment your L2 cache and have through a firmware, a middleware, the model collaborate across these sharded models and have inference and also training done effectively of very large models. So this obviously takes us also to other areas. How about AI-driven cyber defense? I know we have run out of time, so I'll leave some of you to look at the slides in retrospect. But the important part here is the ability to get the big picture is what large language models bring in. And integrating that with domain knowledge is very important. A simple example, retrieval augmented generation, many people have heard of. How do you ensure that the retrieval part, honestly, RAG has failed in many cases because the retrieval part is just taken to be a cosine similarity, a very nice similarity. Domain knowledge becomes extremely essential to ensure that RAG is successful, right? So, I mean, if you had to use RAGs effectively, for example, in cyber defense, and here, I mean, what does it mean to use a large language model in cyber defense? Here's a simple example. I have multiple databases, a toy example from OS query, and using the logs, being able to translate a query like find all failed login attempts and group them by source IP and username. Very toyish example, right? You're able to do that by interpolating across multiple databases. Can you do that? Can we extrapolate on that? Harden, detect, isolate, deceive, evict, and restore. This is what is the offering in terms of the entire sovereign ecosystem. Please do read up a very interesting blog called Situational Awareness, which will actually argue for the participation at the national level in the building of this AI infra, I'm going to leave you with this thought: can we have a defense industry academia ecosystem where obviously the ultimate stakeholder is the defense forces, but can we have educational institutes and in the industry work together, co-design, and in that process make sure that the co-design also involves the end stakeholders, in this case the defense forces. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Professor. Really passionate, and we could have listened to you for hours. I had two questions which you could take on later. One is that have you had interaction with the INICAI, that Indian Navy's AI, your mission? Yeah, and the second is, how did this, the DeepSeek almost sort of sent NVIDIA spiraling down, saying that GPUs are not really that important? You could clarify that a little later. So now may I request our last speaker, Professor Anant Ramakrishnan, from Geetham School of Science, Visakhapatnam, and he'll cover the topic of stealth technologies.
Thank you, Chairman. And I thank the Indian Navy for warmly extending this invitation to me. Thank you very much. So I'll be talking about stealth technology, which maybe is not, in some sense, emerging technology. It is in certain aspects of it, it's a technology that's been with us, with the world for the last 30 years, because the first stealth aircraft came out in 1990s. So in that sense, stealth is not very new, but the way stealth is done has become very different over the years. And today's stealth has the requirement of multispectral nature, where every band of the electromagnetic spectrum and also acoustic spectrum, when you come to the naval requirements, are required to be addressed in a very comprehensive manner. And so what I'm going to present to you today, it is going to be more about what are called metamaterials. All the stealth achievements have been made nowadays with metamaterials, which are structured materials with which you can modify all kinds of responses. And this is an area I practically co-founded with John Pendry in 2000-2001 at Imperial College London. And I was at IIT Kanpur, where most of this work has been done. I moved recently to Geetham University, carrying on with the previous speaker who said academia, industry, defense collaboration. He listed only IITs, etc. But I come from a private university where our flexibility and freedom from GFR is there. So we can actually potentially do much more than any of the government institutions. And part of the reason why I moved. Okay, now let me quickly, okay. So let me quickly lead you through what I call the general principles of stealth. I'll be principally talking only about electromagnetic spectrum here today, but these are applicable to many acoustic phenomena as well. It's very general. We want to be any stealth material, we want it to be multispectral across the relevant bands. The relevant radar bands for different defense objects would be different. An aircraft would be bothered even about the L band or S band from a ground station, whereas a ship would probably be bothered more about the low frequency bands from coastal defenses and from coastal sensors, and the X band from space or aircraft detectors. Directional radar stealth has been achievable. That is how several of the stealth aircraft have been designed. They have been principally designed to deflect or reflect electromagnetic radiation off to other directions other than the frontal. So you have a frontal cone of about 20 to 30 degrees, which is reasonably very low radar returns, and that's what is usually called stealth aircraft or low signature aircraft. Now, that is, however, limited primarily to attacking aircraft, because you know from which direction you need your protection. But when you are talking about a ground asset or a ship which is being examined by an aircraft by radar, synthetic aperture radar imaging, or by a spacecraft, the direction from which you are being seen is not predetermined. You can be seen from any direction, and hence this concept where you deflect it off to other directions fails, because there is no way you can deflect something from every direction into other directions. The only way you can do it if you are is a sphere, and even a sphere is seen reasonably far. So that is, this directional scattering is not a okay thing when you come to comprehensive stealth of ground assets or water assets. So the real SAR image evasion is possible only by actually having low radar returns from the material itself. So the material has to be extremely efficient radar absorber. Thermal evasion is possible by low emissivity and low solar loading. When I say the low emissivity, every hot object emits black body radiation. That's what you call thermal IR, and that's what you are detecting in these infrared cameras, flare and other things. But today the world knows how to make low emissivity paints. That is one way how all these IR nets and IR paints work. But the future really is what I'm showing here. This system designed by BAE engineers, BAE, they packed a lot of thermoelectric coolers on top of a tank, and you can selectively cool or heat any of them. So you can, by cooling these thermoelectric panels, you can actually make the tank image, which was here, completely disappear. The tank is still there, but in the thermal IR, you can't see it. These kind of adaptive infrared coatings or systems are what are required for the future. You can make a tank look like a cow, practically. In ships, you can be more selective because everything doesn't need to have this. Every part doesn't need to have it. The last one is, of course, you also have the visible and near-infrared sensors, which you actually typically fool by breaking the patterns, silhouettes, and you actually make it mimic the background. The future, however, at least in terms of cloth, the new things that have come out are you can have electronically controlled fibers which change color depending on the amount of voltage you use. So that's already coming up now. Coming up to our own achievements, what we have done recently is with metamaterials, using printed conductive inks, microcircuits, and integrated with IR paints and visible colors, we developed this textile-based metamaterial, which is today called Analakshya. It has been, the technology has been transferred by IIT Kanpur to a company called Metatattva, and it is under production. They are today, so what does this do? This material has broadband absorption capabilities. It encompasses the entire radar bands wherever SAR imaging, synthetic aperture radar imaging, is feasible, because you need certain kind of resolutions, you need certain kinds of penetrability in the atmosphere, so not every frequency is actually useful, but the entire X band, parts of the C band, and the KU band are covered with this, where today in the industrial produced materials, we are having more than 96-97% of absorption, almost 99% absorption. This has been extensively field tested by the services, and in all the comparative trials, we were not visible on the SAR images. We were either completely invisible, or even if there were very faint traces of signals, we were not identifiable as a target. Comparatively, every other MSCN, multispectral nets that you are using in your possession of the services stood out bright in the night sky, in the radar images. They were like, it was very, very bright. So in some sense, even if you cannot see the target, you can see the clothes the target wear. That makes them a target too. So what are the advancements in it? The metamaterial is a patented development by us, where we are the only people. Sir, we are lagging the world. We are not lagging the world in this. We are leading the world in this. Nobody has got the kind of broadband performances and high efficiency performances as our material is. This is a truly disruptive technology which disrupts the entire concept of radar camouflage. And we have nanoparticle-based coatings to minimize infrared signatures. These are plasmonically based. These are also a new development in my laboratory. And all the standard Indian Army colors, which comes under the joint services QRs, are actually achieved in this design. And this is commercially available. As we talk, 3 reconfigurable and quickly redeployable air shelters are coming up in one of the commands, where the shelters themselves to house aircraft are stealth, and you can redeploy them. I mean, it takes a certain time to pull it down and put it up, but these are being constructed right now. The same concept can be used for you in the Navy to hide any strategic asset that you would not want to be seen, because once you put up this tent of material over on top of it, these can go over massive structures. The structures we are talking are very big, 35 meter by 35 meter and so on. But we can put up such structures, and because of the radar absorptions, it would just look like water, typically. You would not even see the tent come up. So that's how it could give you significant advantages, particularly in the case of strategic assets. Now, if I move on, we were the first in the world to develop transparent metamaterials which have very high radar absorption, which are of extreme importance when you want to have windows for visible viewing. It can be either the windshields and so on, but it could be more importantly, on a stealth aircraft particularly, you have all the optical sensors, missile warning systems, all those cameras, infrared systems, which can actually be covered with these kind of radar absorbing systems. Typically nowadays, even on, let's say, the F-22 Raptor aircraft, what is used is an ITO coating. It still is not as efficient as an absorber. It's a good reflector, it's not a good absorber. So this is something that we were first in the world to develop, and this radar spectrum goes all the way from 4 to 20 gigahertz, where we have more than 90% absorption of all the radar waves. This is something that we developed more recently. Just one second. Yeah. So we developed something called a advanced thermal obscurity system. So this is a set of metamaterials, patterned metamaterials on a surface, which create diffuse reflection of the infrared from the surroundings. So in this set of pictures, this is a full video actually, which I have not been able to show you here, but in this set of pictures, what you will see is, you have that plastic-like sheet on which the metamaterials, transparent metamaterials have been made for the infrared. And as the person whom you can see in the infrared camera, bright, pulls it on top of him, the person slowly disappears from view in the infrared. So this is something that we have developed. And this is a live demonstration. This actually came out in Ajtak. You can find this video in the YouTube. If you just go and ask IIT Kanpur Stealth and Ajtak, you will get it. But the point that I'm trying to make is, this is something, again, which we have partially implemented in the Analakshya Kavach, but we have also actually putting these into ordinary cloth. We are able to embed these into ordinary cloth, and you may actually want to be considering your soldiers going into combat wearing this. We can make transparent visors for them. The face is one of the hottest object and a target for a sniper. And these are something that can be protected very efficiently using these developments. And here is an example of how I have used this. This is a army tank which has been running around for about a couple of hours or 3 hours. And typically there is an exhaust at the back which is very bright, but that looks black in this image because the exhaust signature has been entirely eliminated by our advanced thermal system. All right. So in that sense, I would just say that we have gone through many things. We have actually developed adaptable infrared surfaces, which based on metamaterials. On the bottom, you can see that there is something I'm putting it at different temperatures. There's a bright square patch on the top, which is an IR image. And as we increase the temperature, that bright square patch switches from a bright image point to a dark point. So it switches from a absorptive material to a reflective material at that point because of phase change materials that have been embedded in the metamaterial structure. So this gives rise to adaptable infrared switching by purely electrical or thermal control. On the other side, I show another metamaterial for radar which we have developed. Usually reflection is at the same frequency or at a Doppler shifted frequency depending on how fast the object is moving of radar. But we now can create surfaces which we modulate and electrically, and because of that we can create reflections at many other frequencies. So completely confusing the radar operator as to what would be the radar speed of the corresponding airborne object. So all these are into the future, all kinds of new developments can be made. So the point is, the future is all about adaptable stealth and camouflage. Passive stealth and camouflage is something we have already achieved. We have achieved it in various contexts, including a flying bomb where the wings have been taken by some other material, a flexible material, and it has been packaged with glass fiber composites. So we are prepared to actually take up many such things. In that particular case, the RCS of the flying wing came down by 15 decibels, TB. So with these, I would just make one small request. There is a very pressing need, desperate need to actually scientifically and define the SQRs properly. The present SQRs for MSCN of the services is incomplete. It only specifies the transmittance and not the reflectance, which is what is important of the nets. And that is actually impeding even the procurement of proper stealth materials for the services. Thank you very much.
So, thank you, Professor. Thank you so much. So now we've just got about 11 minutes for Q&A. The rules have already been set. So please raise your hand. Yes, please. Yeah, next there. We take 3 questions at a time. Yeah.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Saurabh Bise, Senior Fellow at the Vivekananda International Foundation. My question is to Professor Ananta. Sometime back, Professor K.V. Srivastava from the IT Kanpur, he made a presentation on the same subject. And after that created a lot of optimism, like also created your presentation also. So after that, I had a lot of interaction with the defense officials, and they highlighted some of the challenges that, using these metamaterials, the transparent and also the color that you mentioned, in terms of the logistical challenges, and also, the day and night effectiveness. So I would like to know more about the loopholes, challenges in deploying these metamaterials.
Okay, thank you. We'll answer 3 questions at a time. We'll just take. Yes, please. Anyway, you got the mic already, so you can answer.
Yes. I'm Group Captain Narang from MPIDSA. And my question is to Professor Ghosh. Sir, I have been studying UTM, detect and avoid systems for some time. The challenge of these UTMs being translated into acceptable systems requires 2 entities initially. One is Ministry of Civil Aviation and the second is the Air Force. And of course, then it can go to other services parallelly. How do we translate these detect and avoid systems, UTMs and others, into civil aviation and military? Do you find some challenges? Because we have not yet adopted it on Digital Sky and other platforms, which will actually capture the capability of these. Whereas world over, look at Europe or America or many other countries, they have translated these prototypes into the actual operational use. If you could just tell us how to adopt.
Yeah, third question.
Good morning, sir. Captain Vambatkare, retired, Tractors India. My question is to Professor Anant. You talked about Doppler spoofing. Now, wouldn't this be possible to counter with countermeasures which, because the speed data from the Doppler shift, if the with successive scans of the target, if the speed read off by the Doppler shift doesn't match the actual movement of the target, then it's possible to know that the target is Doppler spoofing. So would it be possible for you to generate progressively different shifts to, over a period of time, simulate a totally different speed of the target? Is that also in your plan?
Yeah, so Professor, you can take it. You can take this mic and speak.
Yeah, thank you. So let me quickly address your question because it is easier. The Doppler shifting that we are talking about is something that is done by a modulation. The modulation is a phase modulation, and we choose the frequency and phase for the modulation. So it is extremely simple to continuously generate multiple Doppler shifts with progressively different. It could be random, it could simulate a randomly moving aircraft or purposefully moving aircraft with a different purpose than the actual mission. So these are actually very straightforward. These can be done by any simple programmer with which you can actually program the phase shift and the amplitude as the modulation keeps going on. Yeah. So that is, now regarding the other question the gentleman there asked, I would like to just specify the following. See, when we first developed our material, metamaterial, for the mandate which was for radar only, that is the ones which initially were tested. And there was no funding for this at IIT Kanpur. Professor K.V. Srivastava is my collaborator. We both we worked together. Now, when this happened, some bright officer had the idea to click an IR image and say it doesn't work in the IR. But that was at a developmental phase where there was no IR coating because it costs money to coat an IR coating. Now, IR coating and IR nets are known since 1990s. It's not a new technology. It is something that is trivial by today's technology, and because you just want a low emissivity surface on these. So in the present production range materials, all the coatings are not, we have IR, we have visual matching to all the required colors that are demanded by the Army or the DRDO, and we have that are specified. There are standards for this. They match the standards. The IR coatings are there which have emissivity, low emissivities, and the radar material is there available. Now, somehow that, people keep coming back to me and asking, does it work for IR? The answer is absolutely yes, it works for IR. And as far as SAR imaging is concerned, day or night doesn't make a difference. It's only in IR it may make a difference, and it works very well. The other point that you asked was logistical issues. Well, when you ask for a MiG-21, its weight is different. When you ask for a Sukhoi, its weight class is different. When you ask for an IR net, which gives you only visible IR protection, its weight will be different. When you ask for a SAR imaging also on top of it, its weight or thickness will be different. Now, the specifications for MSCN are about 350 to 500 grams per square meter, depending on the particular tender, and our weight is somewhere between 600 to 700 grams per square meter. Compare this to the Russian development of the Nakidka material which they have been using in Ukraine. That weighs 2.2 kilograms a square meter. So this is the comparison you have to actually make. Our materials are proven against all assets of the services, including BFSR, Sukhois, Jaguars, Hermes, all the satellites that we have been using. We are invisible.
Yeah, Professor.
That's the bottom line. Sorry.
Thank you, Group Captain Narang. That's a very interesting question that you asked. Any innovation is something that goes into actual use, provided there are two partners to it. One is the government machinery, which makes administrative decisions smoother, and the other is the user, people who can use this. So when it comes to UTM, the users are those who are in the military or in the civilian case, but will they actually talk about, or will they use swarms of drones for carrying out missions? So one part is that. The second is the Ministry of Civil Aviation and other administrative branches of the government that has a say in these matters. So these are two things that have not yet come together And the technology developers like us, we develop things, but then at some point it gets stuck. A very nice thing has happened last month, which is Andhra Pradesh government has come up with a drone city venture, which is a 300-acre area where they actually want to implement a UTM to demonstrate that this is something that works and is useful. We are a part of that. And if that happens, then the MOCA, who is also a part of this drone city venture, would be able to accept it and then spread it state-wise in Andhra Pradesh and hopefully nationwide in the country. So we are all looking forward to it. Thank you for asking that question.
If I may just add to this, I think the state participation becomes very important. I alluded to the Maharashtra drone mission, and a very similar synergy has evolved there.
Yeah, so next set of questions, anyone? Just a minute, just hang on. One and anybody else? Two and three. Okay, please.
Jain sir, I'm Lieutenant Khushali Bhav sir from Submarine Design Group. My question is to Professor Ramakrishna sir. Sir, when we deploy the LLM...
Which Ramakrishna?
Sir, IIT Madras. For LLM models. Sir.
Okay.
Sorry sir. So when we deploy this LLM model in on-prem module, so for training the LLM model in cloud-based software, we know that we can have exposed to diversity and we can have internet access. But what is the scenario when we have it on-prem and we have only selected library available to train the LLM model?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Next question, please.
Yeah, so continuing maybe the same question a little more. My name is Sanjay. I'm a AI enthusiast and a startup founder. My question is, there was a lot of talk of leapfrogging at the beginning and so on. So my question is whether, as a country, we should focus on following the LLMs or getting into the post-LLMs era, which is, you alluded to the state-of-the-world models, spatial models, and other such models, because we have limited resources and limited GPUs, obviously. So would love to understand. Thanks.
Yeah. Third question.
Hello, sir. My name is Gaurav, founder of RagDevTech. Actually, I had a question from Ganesh, sir. Professor Ganesh, actually, America is developing Eagle Eye, the iOS platform for situational awareness system and detecting the and differentiating who are enemies and who are basically friends. At the same time, how it will be compiling with the your drone system and further collaborating in hybrid warfare, and how it will help to define and coordinate the operation better and efficient.
Thank you. Madam, I'll start with yours. I mentioned that a very effective way of using these models on-prem in cloud air-gapped environments is retrieval augmented generation RAG. And the key in RAG is getting the retrieval correct, right? And I think a lot of innovation, co-design with domain experts, I give example of cybersecurity, but it applies to all domains. So I would say that's one very important part, which is off the shelf, right? Just being able to do retrieval effectively. There have been very nice efforts. For example, WizRag, if you read up, it actually trains a model to retrieve, right? How do you retrieve effectively on-prem? But there is also the other aspect of pre-training models in air-gap situations. That's also possible. Data distillation and model distillation are very important there. Now, what DeepSeek did was distilled a lot of data from OpenAI, right? But what OpenAI did subsequently, GPT OSS, a 20 billion parameter model, it did model distillation, distilled its own large model. That led to a 20 billion parameter, which was very effective. Now, all these are leapfrogging. And one of the reasons we have been tasked with building a 1 trillion parameter model for India is so that the model distillation also happens. Because otherwise we have only black boxes. We need glass boxes. I hope that addresses your point. The second, I think, coming back to this AGI, right, race, I think finally you understand the more reasoning, the more provenance you build into the system, the more you can get what we call general intelligence. Right? Reasoning will come from provenance. I'm a fan of databases. In a time and era where AI was over-promising and under-delivering, I was at IBM Research. We took a lot of inspiration from databases. We developed something called annotator query language. We said, can we extend SQL, structured query language, to annotated query language? And that was interesting because you have an entire execution plan that you can get access to. Can we do the same thing with AI? And that's exactly a point I alluded to. Can we actually have human and models, domain knowledge and the large context, right, mumbo jumbo that's happening through LLMs? Can they interoperate? Can we have the domain expertise in the form of what we call programs be distilled? And by the way, Stanford has this very interesting initiative called Snorkel, and we got inspired by that. I mentioned data efficient learning. If you go to decile.org, data efficient learning, we try to incorporate our own indigenous versions. I think there's a lot of scope there. So my point is, unless we create this ecosystem, we will not have the DeepSeek moment. DeepSeek actually China invested for several years, but we can do it very differently. And then the last question in this I think we are run out of time. We can probably...
because of, for good behavior, we got 10 minutes extra.
Oh, did we? Okay. So coming back to the friend 4, this is very important. We need to work together. We need to co-design. I think many of these off-the-shelf models, fine-tuned for a particular task, will not work. I gave the example of retrieval augmented generation. I gave the example of distillation. I think we need to work together. Is there a way? And that's the reason in my last slide, well, with all respect to Geetam, it was a wake-up call to the IITs, because I feel the IITs need to get out of their, and the ISCs need to get out of their comfort zone more than Geetam, right? So the slide actually didn't mention all educational institutes, so full respect to your efforts, sir. Yeah. But coming back, I think this is a call for co-designing, and we have to learn that from China. How did China, if you look at the evolution of what we call positional embedding, so when you have sequences of tokens in large language models, how do you get the position of the entities, right? So there's this wonderful paper called ROPE, which had this relative positional embedding. How did this happen? Because mathematicians sat down with engineers. Because architecture people, the flash attention trilogy, architecture people sat down with algorithm design people, and that's when innovations could take place. So instead of expecting something off the shelf to work and have the provenance, which I talked about earlier, I think the solution is co-design by design and not in retrospect.
Thank you. The last 3 questions we can take, we've got some time. Yes, one. Sorry, these lights are coming into my face, I can't make out. Yeah, there, please. Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
One second. Yeah, the third question from you, that young girl. Yeah, please.
Good morning, sir. I am Commander Vijit Mishra from Shipbuilding Center, Visakhapatnam. Sir, Admiral KB Singh, sir, you brought out that very rightly that we should leapfrog against our adversary. But with my limited knowledge, I feel that we have an advantage, which is our cost effectiveness, sir. Wherein our weapon systems are 5 or 10 times more cost effective compared to our Western adversaries. And with my limited exposure to IIT Delhi and IIT Madras, sir, my question is to our eminent academician is that I could not find even a single course that talked about cost effectiveness while developing engineering system. So why don't we go for cost effectiveness while developing our engineering systems? Because if you see why DeepSeek is much more effective is because of its cost effectiveness. It is much more cost effective as compared to OpenAI. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Professor Ghosh can take it on. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, good morning. I'm Reena Mamgen from Radar Scientist from DRDO. My question is for Professor Ramakrishna on stealth technology. So regarding this Analekya, sorry for the pronunciation. In that, I would like to know what radars are used to test that you are not getting any SAR image, and what was the band it was in used, if you can say. So that it's interesting for as a radar fraternity, I would like to incorporate some technology that I can see you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this.
Good morning, sir. My name is Atiksha Francis and I am currently studying in 9th. Recently, on a software called Google Earth, which provides satellite images, I observed that it also provides clear pictures of the Mumbai, Kochi, and Vizag dockyards. While observing the Mumbai dockyard, I noticed the ship in refit, and by listing its characteristics, I observed that it was a Talwar class ship. During Operation Sindoor, it showed that most ships in Kochi and Vizag were shifted to Mumbai. This software is available to all civilians and it's very easy to make such observations. If a civilian can have such capabilities, then I'm assuming that the militaries and governments of other countries having extremely advanced systems would find it even easier. I would like to know what the Indian Navy is doing to counter this major security threat.
Okay, so one question for you, one question for you. And the difficult question, let's see, we can handle that. Yeah.
So this was a question about cost effectiveness. In Indian universities, why don't we teach innovators how to be cost effective? I think that requirement is certainly there, but I'm not quite sure whether a course will cover it. When innovators work on anything, cost effectiveness is always on their mind. In India, there is a cost effectiveness that is related to the material that is used. The raw material, if it is available, then it is very inexpensive compared to what we have from outside. Labor is inexpensive, but in the long run, when you develop something and see it through to production and final market, you will find that the cost keeps piling up. So I suppose the financial training is very important to handle all those things, and they are important certainly, so that the developers, the technology developers themselves most probably will not be very cost effective because there's a lot of other costs that are also associated with it. But it's an interesting thought if somebody comes up with a course by which this whole cycle of innovation can be made cost effective and people can be taught, then I suppose it will be a good thing to happen. Thank you.
May I just add to this?
Yeah, please.
So I think it's a very important question, the cost effectiveness. There are, at least from the AI perspective, there is efficiency of the models and there is something called data efficiency as well. I alluded to the fact that if you had to illuminate this room well, you need to configure the right bulbs to be illuminated so that there is coverage, there is diversity. This is an optimization problem, discrete optimization problem, data subset selection. I mentioned this open source repository decile.org, data efficient, but it also does a lot of compute efficient. In fact, there's a branch there called ML efficiency for large models. The indifference is what works in terms of efficiency on small scale. For large scale, the entire game changes. And that is the reason India Mission thought we should have also the large scale models so that we can extrapolate with reasonable level of confidence. Also, the other important aspect of bringing this frugality is we should bring science there. I think jugaad should be avoided in the name of efficiency and make it science.
Yeah, thank you. Quickly, yes.
Very quickly, with your indulgence, sir, I will very quickly make one point about...
clock is staring
yes,
at me.
Very quickly. Yeah. Sir, IIT Kanpur used to offer a course on frugal engineering, and that is there records cost efficiencies. Many of the entrepreneurship courses are already there. We should note that. But anyway, quickly coming to the question on radar bands for SAR imaging are well known. You can do radar SAR imaging from L band to C band to X band, but the point is the best resolutions and atmospheric transparency conditions are best at X band, and hence most military applications are in X band. But you can do SAR imaging in C band. It's full of noise, the communication band, and that is something not very particularly useful. S band and L bands typically do not give you the resolutions for SAR imaging that is required. So there are certain natural and fundamental restrictions on where you would actually want to use SAR imaging bands for the military applications. But that said, people are exploring like you would want to explore at other things. What we can do with our metamaterial is, depending on whatever is the threat perception of the SAR bands available to your perceived adversaries, we can develop the material and deploy them accordingly. There will be some trade-offs in terms of weight and thickness of those metamaterials, but that's it. So it actually doesn't matter for which band you develop it. We can very quickly redesign our stuff for that. Thank you.
Yeah, to that student who asked that question about, it's a fact that today the battle space has got much more transparent. And in fact, you'll be, surprised to know that all this intelligence which first, existed with governments is now available online. So this is something that all armed forces and militaries have to factor. The fact that the Russia's attack on Ukraine was imminent was not detected by some of these big military constellations and satellites. It was detected by a commercial satellite operator. So this is something that all the militaries have to factor. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting ducks. And it's a very good point that you put up. So with that, I think we've come to a close. We already exceeded 3 minutes. May I just request all of you to give the speakers a big round of applause.
Well, that was indeed an enlightening and invigorating session, evident from the participation of the audience during the Q&A. May I now request Vice Admiral A.Y. Sardesai, VSM, Inspector General Nuclear Safety, to kindly come up on the stage and felicitate the panelists of the session. Admiral K.B. Singh. Professor Debashish Ghosh. Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan. And Professor S.A. Ramakrishna. Thank you, sir. I request the dignitaries on stage for a group photograph, please. Thank you, sir. I request the dignitaries to kindly take their seat in the audience. shortly.
Good afternoon, everyone. We shall commence the second interactive session on boosting the IDEX ecosystem. I would like to request you all to please put your hands together and welcome our esteemed panelists for this session to join us on stage as I introduce them. Our first panelist and the moderator for this session is Lieutenant General V.G. Kandare, PVSM, AVSM, SM. The General has served the nation on all operational fronts along northern, eastern and western borders during his tenure in the Indian Army. His final appointments were Director General Defense Intelligence Agency, Deputy Chief of the Integrated Defense Staff for Intelligence and Principal Advisor to the Ministry of Defense. Our second panelist is Dr. Anurag Srivastava, with over 33 years of experience in senior leadership roles like Executive Business Leader, CTO, CCO, Innovation and Business Scale Leader in industry and academia. He brings with him depth of various advanced technologies, rich industry domains, business and PL management, innovation and incubation management. Our third panelist for the session is Mr. Vish Sahasranaman, a seasoned operational executive and a successful tech entrepreneur. With over 2.5 decades of experience in strategic business planning, product strategy management, marketing, strategic alliance, and business development. He has had a vision to transform India's innovation economy in the industrial digital age by building and operating a national-scale innovation value network to catalyze talent, technology, and ventures. Our fourth panelist is Mr. Vishesh Rajaram, one of India's respected early-stage deep tech funds with over 18 years of experience in venture capital. He focuses on startup building advanced technologies from defense and space to robotics, AI, and industrial systems. He is known for guiding founders, helping them scale, and building strong industry startups. And now, to guide us through this discussion, I hand over the stage to our moderator. Over to you, sir.
Jai Hind. Can I get a better Jai Hind? Jai Hind. Yeah. Especially for the rear rows, it's important to understand what is the meaning as I put it to Jai Hind, and there's nothing political about it. It's a simple 2 words to align all of us, starting from the Honorable Prime Minister to each one of us to say, we have to keep reminding ourselves that there is no other option but to win. And Jai means victory and Hind means my country. So that is the only way to keep reminding us every day, and talking about a good morning or a good evening in our country, every morning is good. So that is the reason why I always start with Jai Hind. And today, I also want to remind all of us, today is 26/11. What happened a few years back should never be forgotten or forgiven. So for that, you must also remember that when Kautilya said, be strong, and towards that, when the Indian Navy started its journey on Swavlamban, that is something unique. And possibly I am the only army officer here, and I want to acknowledge the fact that Navy did well to initiate and being a pioneer. In all our discussions so far, we have spoken about the global issues, we've spoken about the regional issues, we've spoken about the technological issues, But I want to be slightly different here and remind the Indian Navy that you need to get and record this somewhere as to how did such initiatives happen. And I want to put it on record because since I was initially in the NSCS and thereafter in the Ministry of Defense, TDAC as an organization came up because of two people, Admiral KB and Vice Admiral Ashok. They are the two people who go down in history as people who created TDAC. And look at where Indian Navy has taken it. Next, how did Swavlamban start? Again, this is something which is maybe a story but needs to be recorded somewhere. In March 22, I came and sat in South Block in the Ministry of Defense, and on that day, the Vice Chief of Navy, Satish Ghormade, he walks up to me and he said, "We want your help." I said, "What exactly?" They said, "We have 25 challenges which we want to bring in for indigenization, innovation, whatever you may call it." Then we started discussing that same day immediately, and 25 became 50. Next day, we walked up to the Defense Secretary, Dr. Ajay Kumar, and he said, 75 years of independence, why can't 50 become 75? So it became 75. The next issue was, who will unveil these challenges? His view was Honorable Raksha Mantri, my view was Honorable Prime Minister, because I felt all those bureaucratic hassles will go away if the Prime Minister gives a go-ahead. And that's exactly what happened. March 22 we started, June 22, Honorable Prime Minister in the Ambedkar International Convention Center unveiled Swavlamban, and see where we are today. This needs to be recorded somewhere in history. So that is where I thought I will remind everyone, because this is the last session. And in any case, for my panelists, they are a distinguished lot. You don't have to be discouraged that you are the last one, because you take the victory, because the last man makes the team win. Now the other point, everyone has spoken about India being at an inflection point. And inflection point means you have to become sovereign in whatever way that you can think of. Sovereignty is not restricted only to land or to sea. Sovereignty also comes up in technology. And unless you are Atmanirbhar in technology, you'll always be asking people for help. And that's not something that a country which is rising so fast can afford to do. When we keep talking about the geopolitics, the rule-based world order, very often I start looking at the turbulence and the turmoil and whether it's really a rule-based world order or a deal-based world disorder. I really do not know how to spell it, but the younger generation definitely will have to work through this fog. And more we become stronger, self-reliant. While we become self-reliant doesn't mean that we stop talking to others. In fact, our engagement with others is a must while we become self-reliant. Now in that, we have to now start seeing more than just a seminar or more than just an event. The panel which is in front of you comprises of those people who are going to tell you about how to do action. And yesterday we had a small chat, and what we came to the conclusion is, at the end of this session, there should be specific policy recommendations, action-based recommendation, where we can go forward, and in the next edition of Swavlamban, we should be able to audit as to what did we achieve after this one, where you are present. So I don't want to stand too much between you and the eminent panelists. Dr. Anurag Srivastav, he is going to give you a presentation also, and he'll talk to you about his experience and whether it is starting from the design, the prototype, and taking it to production, and especially so many startups and MSMEs who are here, and futuristic generation also want to hear from him. So over to you, Anurag.
So good afternoon, everybody, and it's a privilege to be among you and brothers. I was here, I think last year in Swavlamban, which was more army-driven, and it was great to see our friends from Navy now. And I think my presentation, it was a hard subject when it was, given to me, and it was told that I need to be really honest and brutal about the facts of what this means to us. As the chairperson sir already set the tone, we are really looking at that if we have to be Atmanirbhar and Swavlamban in the technology perspective, translating that into a dimension is the core. How do we go ahead to make prototype and research to give a product? And I think that journey is a different type of a journey. And what I am doing today is an experience sharing of a 33 years of a life in different role from the innovation perspective. And my intention here is, and it's for my academic friends, where I belong to also, but it's also that I was in industry, so my industry friends are also here. Of course, VCs have a lot more role to play, and all of them are covered here. So I would really appreciate that if you can get to the gist of it. It's a very crisp presentation, but has lots of content in it, and we'll just move ahead for it. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on technology. Younger generation is sitting here. All of these, I think when we have to look at what we want to become, and we are talking about a time period of, we need to move with speed. He talked about the deal-making scenario, geopolitical scenario. All of us are aware about it. So the question is, we are what we are. And there's no friends. You cannot trust all the friends, and any friend can be changing its paradigm down the line. So if we have to see our horizons in two buckets. You have to do and invest into 1 to 5 year horizon of technologies and getting the products quickly out, whether it's Navy, whether it's Army, whether it's anybody else. And all of these areas that you see here, they are talking about what could be achieved as a TRL 7 to 8 in the near horizon. We already know the cost asymmetry of autonomous systems is a big dimension of change. Whether we are seeing it is from Operation Sindoor in the drone scenarios, you have the Herons and the cost of the other dimensions going down drastically differently from the new types of logistic drones, and that is a very different dimension. So I think the question is, autonomous systems will provide the cost asymmetry. Weaponizing them and making that to happen differently has different challenges, especially from Navy. While moving in, you have to deal with it, so there are different scenarios. I understand, one of the gentlemen was talking over tea to Professor Debashi, saying, how do we fix that? I think that's a dimension. So these, Atmanirbhar is a very difficult goal. We don't build a sensor. We don't build a high-resolution camera. We do not build an RF technology. It starts from fundamental. We don't have leisure. We have many things which are not there. But we have to start somewhere, and I'm so glad that Swavlamban started, Atmanirbharta started, so that at least the youth which is sitting here and the startups which are sitting here are able to do that. Now, I'm not going to spend time on all of this. It's a detailed subject. It in itself can take, but I'm trying to focus on if you have to make it to implementation and deploy it in a shorter time, what does it take to do? And that is what the focus of this talk is. I think this is a horizon of 5 to 15 years. And it's important to understand. We have to take a lot of time in doing it. So this is starting at a dimension which is earlier. What you saw previously, you can achieve in 3 to 5 year horizon to deploy. What you are seeing here has to be invested now so that you in next 5 to 7 to 10 years are really reaching to what you want to become. And that needs another part beyond innovation and what we drive. And that needs little imagination, which has to come from users. So I think that's a very important dimension. All of you sitting here have to look at what do you need 7 years or 9 years down the line, given that our geography is different. given that we are different. The book of CDS talks about that. Yesterday, the gentleman on the first session talked about India being very different geographically. So what we need is something different from what US is building, what Russia is building, what everybody is building. And that imagination has to come from the user, which is sitting in this room. So I think we know what technologies are needed, but how do we use it has to come from us, from this, my brothers out here who have to be telling us, saying that's where we want to reach in 7 to 10 year goal. Some are 5 to 15 years, some are 7 years, some are 9 years. Both, remember that you have to build your innovation and IDEX or any of the dimension which you want to drive to be seen in these buckets and invest accordingly. I think this chart is critical. It covers everybody. You have to see this is very important chart. On one dimension, you have the budgets, and we hide behind all this. And I was told that I have to be honest by experience, so I'm going to be honest by experience. Nothing happens in 2 crore. To get a TRL 7, 8, 9 product. Let's first acknowledge that. So if you have to do anything, there are two graphs here. One needs budget, one talks about technology research levels. TRL 1 to TRL 9. TRL 1 to 4 is the strength of academia. They can give you lab prototype. You go and give a large project to academia, with all due respect to my academic friends, can they deliver us 8 to 9 product? Answer is no. They cannot. It's not the cup of tea. Their goal and drivers in the academic institution is different, and they cannot. We must understand that. It's not, with the respect that they have, you have to understand that part as usual. Then you have this dimension, which is the red line. This translation from 4 to 6 is the most difficult part. Yesterday somebody talked about death, valley of death for many of the startups, and some of them are here. That happens because a lab prototype to become a product, which is field deployable in the condition to run 24/7, 365, continued looking at a maintenance, serviceability, ease of doing things, is not an easy job. And that is a rigor. The percentage of research goes down in this red line phase. In the percentage of research in the first phase is 70%, 30% is engineering. In the case of the red line, it is 30%, 70% engineering. And in the last dimension of the curve, where you are expanding manufacturing at scale, is the money and the sales and the dimensions of relationships, connect, service management. We do not understand this. When we drive innovations and program, this slide is meant for all of us to open our eyes that you have to spend in those buckets. And you have to find the right guys to do that buckets. Is everybody playing this role? There are 5 entities listed here. Government is doing its job, you are doing your job, you are investing, trying to do, but the way the investments are being made is not structured to deliver the outcomes that we want with speed. So you have to look at 1 to 5 year window thing, which are already at TRL 4, invest the money to move them up in the next 3 years and deliver it. This is not a theoretical slide, and I'll talk to you about a Cameras case study, which was a MHI funded program, and I'll show you the products running it by the end of it. So this is not a theoretical matter. It's a proof of the pudding that it can be pulled off in the time. Now that is to be understood. So this funding gap of red line for me was put by a MHI program, which is called Cameras Accelerator, and that is where we learned it from, and you will see the sample of the outputs which have been delivered in that particular program in just sheer 27 months now. The program ends by next March, and we have completed a different level of product, TRL 7 to 8. I'll talk about that briefly. But if we have to look at the dimension of space, it is in the 5 year to 10 year to 15 year cycle. You have to start now. The funding gap, if I'm spending 3 crores in the R&D phase, I have to give 7 times in the translation to reach to TRL 6. So I may need 15 to 20 crores. And if I have to go up, after that VC and investments have to come. In the middle also the VC and investment funds have to come. Our industries players have to come, and they don't come so easily. They want everything perfect, ready, deploy, then we will buy. With due respect, as I said, I take academia on clause. I'm going to take everybody here, sitting here, to understand that they have a role to play if we really, truly want to make India. And yesterday he talked about, I think somebody talked about, that you have to have that national interest play besides being profit. So it's a profit plus. And I think unless all of us are viewing profit plus, that's not possible for us. And I think that's the dimension we need from industry, from the VC funding guys to come in. Do not look at the perfection of the dimension, because it is going to imperfect. By definition, innovation in TRL6 will not be perfect. It will take some time to do that. Now, so I think the key pillars, if you look at it, and I put down, 5 entities have to work together. You have the user. Who is the user? My brothers out here from Defense Forces. If they are not involved in engagement, their job is not to give just money and say, okay, I've given the requirement. Requirements change in innovation. Every day, night, it will change. Your deployment. If you're not involved in the program, academia will deliver something, startup will deliver something, you will leave it for them to figure it out and fend themselves, and that's not going to work. Nobody's going to come, and because VC friend will come and ask, bhai, kitna business hai? How much you have got some sales funnel? Is there something happening or not? And where it is deployed, 100 things will come. And that is the user part, if they are not there. Startup, of course, is the lucky spot for the young people who are there, because they are the one who are bringing and know the new technologies. And they can bring it. So it's a very big dimension of change which India is going through. They will become the MSMEs. They will become the foundation of a country relies on MSMEs and startups. And the big industries take it to global scale. That's their job, because they become the leaders in globe. It's very difficult to become directly to come from there to reach there. So I think that's the dimension of everyone role who is sitting here. And then, of course, we have the manufacturing where people, VC and lots of industry funds will come in, because you are reaching to the acquisition phase. But these 5 people have to work together. And that collaboration we were emphasizing. There's no fixed model which is really delivering that collaboration effectively, seamlessly to take you to TRL7. So that has to be understood. The only point I want to leave with today's talk is that we understand that how do you do that. Okay, I think we tried this model. There was a theoretical thing behind that. I cannot leave the academic part of my element behind while being in industry. I think India is used to the Fibonacci system. Nature works on it. Our Shankh Chakra works on Fibonacci model, layer by layer, and that is how you have to drive innovation at speed. You build on what you have, go to the next level, and that dimension we have to understand. We did study that, okay, people try to drive exponential growth. It is not possible. You have to build on what you do. And the 2 charts on the right side are talking about, okay, if you assume, and this is a little bit of a maths on saying that if you look at a Fibonacci number movement, it is previous number plus next number and add it together, right? So if you are able to drive the variable, you are going to attain the same growth or a better growth than what you can do with the money if you put it in the beginning and try to drive in 2 years an output. Now, that's the strength of Fibonacci. The execution and innovation model has to be run differently. It is as much valid for industries to drive their own innovation inside, and not just the incubators. It is a dimension that needs to be taken. Now, a lot of risk in this, which are identified on the right side of the curve. There is a paper here. We have a hard copy of it, which we have. Some of the printout here, which if you want to study, you can take it later from our side. But I think these are if you see the variables which are being listed here, you have to build in this 3-year journey, the pyramid or Fibonacci dimension of each variable and drive the combination of innovation. This is what really IDEX must fund and see the horizon of their program of 3 years. And they have to drive that as program. Not just, okay, most of the incubator will distribute money based on decision and give the budgets, but does it result into the end product that we all are discussing today? Is it deployable, not deployable? It is a hard thing, right? So I think, coming back to the chairperson, this is the last slide which talks only on recommendation. And this is the suggestion based on the study which we have done, that you have to look at an outcome-specific goal. And that has to come with the 5 guys coming together. If we don't drive innovation, innovation is not a hobby. Incubators have to understand that, startups have to understand it is not a hobby. It is a serious business, and therefore, we must drive it with the right dimension of involvement. And we are saying, till now, we never consider in academia that, okay, I should have my defense brothers retired or existing on deputation to come and be part of the team. We don't do that. We give the budget, we expect it has to come out, make them part of the team. Make them be taken. It has to be seen as a win together as a team. It is not just academia has to defend. If we don't do that, that's the user part of it, which I'm saying. And it is the academia job to put them, in the project costing, the costing for our people. What's wrong with it? It's our nation. It's our people, and if we will not cost that, we better be doing that. And then we will have the right pictures coming out. So, one has to do that. And then we will have to look at the large industry and VC guys to come in a little bit early, saying, okay, our user is involved, a dimension is there. So it's not just I'm telling you the challenges, but there is a solution. We have to do it. We have to open up to ourselves saying, okay, are we steering? Yes, we've got output, we have value, but you have to do it in a way in which you will be successful. And you can create such an accelerator like dimension. We have to move from the COEs and the concept of incubators to saying we are creating accelerators. You have many guys, you have to accelerate the innovation in this country to become the product to TRL 7 and 8. Now, this is the example of the products. They are all field deployed. These companies are running. These companies have raised funds. So I told you the chart about this is the MHI cameras program, which is a case study on which this has run. It started in 23rd January, and by now, the program is ending in March 26. You are seeing these products which are deployed and tested in the fields. And they're all there. They have raised the funds. These 6 companies and 7 companies that we have raised the investors' money. You are going from sensor. Inherently, there is a supply chain built into the program to indigenize that we can build the basic elements down the line. It's a hard exercise. I did lose my hairs on that to become white, but the question was someone has to see it, prove it in this country that can I pull it off in 3 years to do. And it took a hell out of me. And I'm not saying that it's a joke to do these things, but it's a point that the talent and the startup, the energy, comes from that. The experience brings the expertise and the rigor. The user brings the element differently. Academia brings the research elements. And all of that has to be become 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 2 multiplier. So I think, okay, we are seeing this as a Navy example of the drone. It is on the moving ship. It can be tested. It could be built in. And we are looking at sensor fusion and a simulation platform for the ship. So, when we build these programs, you look at multifunctional, multi-domain kind of deployment of what you build in. And I think I will just leave you with...
कंधों से मिलते हैं कंधे कदमों से कदम मिलते हैं हम चलते हैं जब ऐसे तो दिल दुश्मन के हिलते हैं कंधों से मिलते हैं कंधे कदमों से कदम मिलते हैं हम चलते अब तो हमें अब तो हमें आगे बढ़ते हैं रहना अब तो हमें साथी है बस इतना ही कहना अब जो भी हो शोला बन के पत्थर है पिघलाना अब जो भी हो बादल बादल बनके पर्वत पर है छाना।
कंधों से मिलते हैं कंधे, कदमों से कदम मिलते हैं, हम चलते हैं जब ऐसे तो दिल दुश्मन के हिलते हैं। कंधों से मिलते हैं कंधे, कदमों से कदम मिलते हैं, हम चलते हैं जब ऐसे तो दिल दुश्मन के हिलते हैं।
निकले हैं मैदान में हम जहाँ हथेली पर लेकर, अब देखो दम लेंगे हम जाके अपनी मंजिल पर। खतरों से हंस के खेलना, इतनी तो हमें हिम्मत है। मोड़े कलाई मौत की, इतनी तो हमें ताकत है।
हम सरहदों के वास्ते लोहे की एक दीवार है, हम दुश्मनों के वास्ते होशियार हैं, तैयार हैं।
अब जो भी हो शोला बनके पत्थर है पिघलाना, अब जो भी हो बादल बनके पर्वत पर है छाना।
कंधों से मिलते हैं कंधे, कदमों से कदम मिलते हैं, हम चलते हैं जब ऐसे तो दिल दुश्मन के हिलते हैं।
जो भी हो शोला बनके पत्थर है पिघलाना, अब जो भी हो बादल बनके पर्वत पर है छाना।
कंधों से मिलते हैं कंधे, कदमों से कदम मिलते।
Thank you, Dr. Anurag. Very honestly and forcefully put across very valid points, and seeing is believing. So I think you made a very good impact, and I agree with you. The points which you made about academia, about involvement, about losses that will happen. So very valid points. Now we move to somebody who's very knowledgeable about IDEX, Mr. Vish, and I know him well because right from 2018, when IDEX was implemented, he's been a very familiar face in room number 129, where Admiral Hari, Admiral KB, Commodore Golaya, we all used to have long sessions, brainstorming sessions, and now he's got, with that insider's view, a lot of recommendations which he has brought today, and I would invite him and let's listen to him. He's got some very valid issues to be highlighted. Over to you, Vish.
Greetings and gratitude to TDAC, NIIO, Indian Navy for this wonderful opportunity. It's always awesome to be with a room full of believers, change makers, and revolutionaries. I don't have a presentation for the simple reason that Commodore Singh and his team wanted my presentation to be delivered last week. And I'm saying, you guys start and win a war in 3 days, and you want my deck a week before? So just in time doesn't work, apparently. So I'm skipping the slides, and I'm just going to talk. And if I can have Kandari Saab's presentation, I'm just going to read from my script just to make it more interesting for all of us here. I've been asked to talk about streamlining procurement policies for IDEX, but I've taken the liberty to bend the rules a little bit. And I'm going to talk about reimagining and redesigning procurement for strengthening, for scaling IDEX. Because there's a critical difference between what we have been doing in the last 6 years since IDEX launched and what we should really be doing. And the difference will determine whether IDEX becomes India's engine for defense innovation or remains trapped in institutional administrative ambiguity. We don't have the Chatham House rules, but I'm still going to sort of speak my mind and put it out there. I do have a parental relation with IDEX, so I do state things that I take deep ownership and responsibility for, but I'll try to say what is what. And I hope Kandari Saab will allow me the liberty to do that. Thank you, sir. Military procurement has served us well for decades. The formula is very elegant. Buy the right product, in the right quantity, for the right price, at the right time, from the right supplier. This works flawlessly when you're procuring established products in conventional categories based on mature mainstream technologies from proven suppliers. It's battle-tested, efficient, auditable, accountable, and we should not tinker with it. But here's the problem. We're not procuring products in or under or for IDEX. We are procuring innovations that may, that can, and that will become products in the future. In product procurement, you buy what already exists. So the formula, right product, right quantity, right price, right time, right supplier, they all work flawlessly together. But in innovation procurement, you're not buying. You're building. And we heard the Honorable Raksha Mantri talk about we're no longer buyers, we have to be builders. Your innovator or startup or MSME is a tech partner, not a product supplier. The sequence is completely different. We have to start with defining the right product, building the right product, proving the right product, and then we get to buying the right product. So what's the missing layer? What's the missing link in what we're doing? I call it the product management approach, the product management layer. We do have the guidelines enshrined under IDEX, but we've got to be able to put that to better use. What it really comprises of is three things. Technology management, which is understanding the maturity level. We're talking futuristic technologies, emerging futuristic technologies, the state of the art, the natural course of evolution, the roadmap of those emerging and futuristic technologies. Next comes requirements management. Can we define what military needs, not from procurement exigencies, but from capability priorities, capability imperatives? And lastly comes risk management. Innovation is inherently risky. You cannot manage risk with the same tools designed to eliminate risk from product procurement. In product procurement, we aim for zero failures. Procurement should not fail. But in innovation, we need to embrace portfolio thinking. Some will fail, some will succeed, some will immensely, exponentially succeed. So portfolio success matters, not every single asset's success. And for my friend Vishesh, who runs a VC, I'm sure he knows more and more about why it doesn't matter if a single startup doesn't return the money, but another one gives 100x, he's bagged a multi-bagger right there. I'll take a metaphor from cricket. We just lost the test match. I don't know how many of you have seen the news. We just lost it, right? 2-0 to South Africa. Has any cricket team ever won by aiming not to lose? We have students in the audience. Tell me a student that has topped a class who went through the entire class thinking about not to fail. Playing not to fail is not the same as playing to win. And Kandare Saab spoke about why it's important for us to play to win. The top boss wants us to play to win. Has any investor portfolio beaten market returns by ensuring every single asset doesn't fail? No, diversification means some assets will fail, some will outperform, the portfolio wins. We need that same mindset in IDEX. Another very important aspect about IDEX is we have a one-size-fits-all approach to three types of products. Half of IDEX projects are what I call core products. They are components, subsystems, devices, materials, things that get embedded inside end products that military can procure, can deploy, can operate, and can maintain. But military isn't the buyer of these components. Military is the end user. The actual buyer could be the DPSU, the systems integrator, the tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, or the defense prime contractor. So we're asking the military to commit to procurement of something they don't buy. All they do is test, trial, validate, use as part of end products. The platforms, the systems, the equipment, etc., into which these core products as components, devices, materials get into. Now that's a fundamental structural mismatch. That's one issue. The second is almost half of IDEX projects overall are actually technology demonstrators at best. You look at the requirements, they're defined to be technology demonstrators. They're proof of concept projects. We're talking about AI algorithms, new metamaterials, quantum sensors, robotics, automation systems, and so on and so forth. Their goal is to prove the concept works, validate military utility, demonstrate integration feasibility. not to fulfill an existing procurement requirement. Yet we're evaluating all of them through the same procurement lens. And then there are the end products. So we spoke about core products, technology demonstrators, and end products. About 10% to maybe 15% of IDEX projects, we're talking what, close to about 750 projects so far. Dayanand can keep me honest on the numbers there. 10-15% are end products. These are things that military can actually buy, they can procure directly. So 3 completely different categories of innovations, 3 completely different requirements, 3 completely different success metrics, but we're running all 3 through the same procurement process. That's like playing a test match, a T20 tournament, and a one-day World Cup under identical rules and similar strategies. It's cricket, but played differently to win. It's about playing to win. The projects are slowing down, the deadlines are aging, the ambiguity is compounding. And I'll get to the cost of ambiguity. We talk of risk, we talk of financial risk, we talk of monetary risks and costs, but I think what we're losing out is on the cost of ambiguity. What happens when you subject innovations to product procurement logic, the rules, the regulations? Core product developers, the 10x engineers, the kinds that we've seen come out of India's top institutions, top scientists, technologists, professors who can guide the next generation of smart, world-class engineers. Those guys wait for military to define requirements for something that doesn't yet exist. Military wants these engineers, developers to build something before they can write specifications because that's the language they understand. Everyone waits, nothing moves. The innovator burns cash, loses talent, pivots to commercial markets, shuts down. The DPUs sit, wait, can't invest, can't integrate, can't scale. The defense capability gap widens. We're no longer talking about military doctrines and warfighting strategies. We're talking about technology as tools driving tactics. We saw what happened in the last 3 years or 4 years of this protracted Russia-Ukraine war. I don't know how many traditional, conventional strategies are at play. So how do we get access? It's a hustle. It's more than real battlefield, battle space stratagems at work. So how do we get access to commercial technology that we can swiftly deploy in the operation theater and well, play to win? In the startup world, there's a principle, and given we're really talking about the fusion of the military-industrial complex, the academia, and the startup world, I think we need to also bring in some of the DNA that runs the startup world day in and day out. Time value of money. Time value of money means much less in the startup world than the money value of time. I'll let that sink in, and possibly Vishesh can sort of appreciate what I'm talking about, right? More time to raise money, the founders put more time to raise money, the risks increase. More time to invest money from the investor standpoint, the outcomes are delayed, the returns are delayed. More time to utilize money, which is to spend money and to create outcomes, crisis multiply. Every day an IDEX project doesn't move forward, increases risk. Delays outcomes, invites failure. We're killing our innovations through ambiguity. Obviously, I'm painting a slightly more gory picture than reality. Obviously, I know for a fact that there are some pockets of excellence. But if I were to do, and I've done this for the last 1 year, a deep structural analysis of IDEX, taking all of these 700 plus projects put together, and we see some structural fundamental issues. The Honorable Raksha Mantri spoke about a fundamental shift from military's role as user and buyer to military's role as builder, and I'm adding on to that as orchestrator and as capability developer. Not merely procuring products or platforms, but actively building defense capabilities. This requires a completely different mindset, different procedures, different skills, different success metrics. It requires military to think like a venture capital fund or an innovation capital fund, not a procurement department. The first recommendation, I'm going with the 3 words Raksha Mantri spoke about yesterday. He said, it's time for us to be better, bolder, and faster. And I've structured 3 of my recommendations in exactly along those lines. The first one is, how can we become better? Can we shift from a procurement management, culture, mindset, process, capability, to a technology advancement and a capability development approach? This is not just semantics, this is not just words, this is not just fancy language and terms. This is structural shift that I'm urging, I'm recommending. Nodal agencies and nodal officers cannot merely be users and buyers. They must become capability builders. They must become product managers. They must become innovation catalysts. This requires different thinking, different skills. Can we have some of these skills, training, competencies, development embedded into the training, education institutions within the tri-services? Whether it's the staff college, whether it's the NDC, whether it's the military or the war college. I think there are various ways in which we can look at capability development because we need these skills if we have to make this shift a reality. A procurement officer is incentivized to avoid failure, to minimize risk, to check all boxes. A capability builder is incentivized to maximize impact, to embrace calculated risk, to accelerate outcomes. Nodal officers, and I know quite a few of them, very honorable people, are trapped between these 2 worlds. They need help. We need to liberate them. We need to empower them. We need to redefine their role exactly as and explicitly as innovation catalysts, not as procurement administrators. The second one, which is bolder. Can we decouple development from procurement? Can we decouple development and certification from procurement of core products and technology demonstrators? Can we look at, and here's what I'm proposing, can we look at a national catalog of advanced defense technologies? Successful IDEX projects that reach TRL 8, that are ready for what I call production ready, systems integration ready, or engineering aggregation ready levels. They don't wait for military procurement orders. Instead, they achieve 2 milestones. 1, fit for military use certification. 1, second, fit for military production or military integration certification, which means there is a logical success milestone that can be achieved, that can be audited, that can be accounted, and can be closed, and actually can create opportunities for that innovator, for that startup, to find the next leapfrog opportunity, rather than just keep this as limbo. I mean, we all know what happens when the test match is going to be drawn. We no longer watch that match. The project is complete, the innovators move to commercialization. When a DPSU designs a new platform, could be a Make One project, or could be any of the larger, say, an Aditi project, or could be DRDO TDF projects, or DRDO's own development projects. When all of those end product platform development, large-scale platform capability development activities are happening, they are mandated to consult and to draw down from this catalog, this national catalog of fit for military use, fit for military production, certified core products and technologies. When system integrators architect solutions, they pull from these certified innovations. Development and procurement are decoupled, but innovation and deployment remain connected. And I think this is possibly what I read out of Honorable Raksha Mantri's statement yesterday when he said we have to move from cost plus to what I'm calling value premium. Value is measured not by price, but by alignment with the defense and strategic technology sovereignty objectives. Let's do away with every aspect of cost and price parameters from development evaluation. Keep all of these parameters in procurement, but remove them from innovation. The third one, which is about faster. Make time a mandate. Make timeliness non-negotiable. And here again, I have to rely on facts. About 60% of IDEX projects, sir, 60% of IDEX projects, which is almost every 2 in 3, the aging of milestones beyond the expected completion date is longer than the originally estimated project duration. We're taking twice as long as planned on average. Now, that's not delay. It's a structural issue. It's not a train coming late. The timetable is screwed up. You cannot expect a low-speed gearbox to churn power and performance out of a high-capacity engine. IDEX requires fast decision-making. Everyone in the IDEX pipeline must commit to timeliness. The innovator, the DIO project officer, the accounting officer, the nodal officer, the partner incubator, the DPSU, collectively and individually. It's not a wish, it's not a prayer, it's a strategy, it's a mandate. Now, I've observed something else that's troubling. The cost of making some of these decisions, the meetings, the documentation, the analysis, the reworking of these documentations is often more than the cost of the decision itself. We're talking about a project that's possibly 50, 60 lakhs. I mean, there are many IDEX projects that are in the ballpark of less than a crore. We put it through the same amount of administrative rigor. We're not mindful of cost. It doesn't happen in the private world. In the private sector, we're going to be extremely efficient. I mean, I heard in the last panel about cost effectiveness, but I think efficiency is the word. It's frugality and it's more efficiency, right? So IDEX has to be, in the startup world, this is unthinkable. Every week of delay increases risk. It burns, the amount of money that's left for you to achieve those meaningful, milestones. Eats into equity. It costs money. IDEX has to be governed and managed on its performance in being faster. So it's about time. We took time more seriously. So IDEX, to embrace the principles of entrepreneurial innovation and innovation capital, there are 4 pillars when it works to how the startup, the VC world works: agility, speed, significance, and scale. We prioritize, we organize, we measure, we manage ourselves to achieve these 4 foundational pillars: agility, speed, significance, and scale. Not compliance, not audit trials, not risk elimination. So why am I pressing this so hard? Because we're at an inflection point. The nature, the character of warfare is changing. Technology today is possibly the only superpower that can help us wage and win wars. Every emerging defense technology, whether it's AI, quantum, robotics, materials, autonomous systems, it's born at the component level, not as end products. Innovation at the core component, at the core product level. It's every emerging tech starts in the component space, then we have to redesign innovation procurement from the ground up. If we're not streamlining IDEX procurement policies, we've got to redesign, we've got to reimagine, we've got to restructure. So the call to action: better, bolder, faster decision making. IDEX will have to reimagine how India architects defense capabilities, not merely cater to exigent, expedient requirements. It's about technology advancement, it's about capability development, it's about portfolio management. Let's build, rebuild, reimagine, redesign, and restructure IDEX on these principles. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Wise words, strongly put. Thank you, Vish. Couldn't have expected anything better. And I'm sure whatever you said, having now been in the private sector also and seen the pain points of the startups, as also while you were in the Ministry of Defense, you had an insider's view. So a lot of relevant points have come out. And I think I don't want to repeat them. But I want to just emphasize on one part, that the national vision is to be a Viksit Bharat by 2047. And that's the question. If we all are looking at Viksit Bharat, who's looking at Surakshit Bharat? Obviously, that's a subset of Viksit Bharat. And we need to focus on that. And let us do a good job of it. And the first 2 speakers have spoken a lot of knowledge. That is called Saraswati Vani. But everyone is wanting to hear the Lakshmi Vani that comes from Vishesh.
Jai Hind, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us over here. And I must say, Saraswati is resource for Lakshmi. I think they come together. It's hard to see one without the other. Very quick background. I represent an organization called Special Invest. We've been investing in science and technology for nation-critical applications for the last 8 years. We've been fortunate to raise about 1,000 crores and make about 30 plus investments. I'm a trained optimist, so I'll be objective, but I'll also be very optimistic of how we see the future because we fail more often than we succeed, but optimism helps us stay afloat. Some of the companies that we've been very fortunate to be part of that have been working very closely on nation-critical projects. We've been early supporters of a company called Galaxy Space. They're a SAR and EO constellation that does sensor fusion on the edge for critical insights for the nation. We've invested in UAV company that works on GPS-denied situations. We most recently invested in a company that came out of IIT Madras called Biomimicry. They're building PNT solutions on LEO for, of course, public and private use cases. QNU Labs, which also has displaying as an exhibitor today, that's a quantum security company ensuring quantum safe communications for nation-critical needs. Kava Space, which is a geospatial analytics company. Agnikol Cosmos, I know Srinath was here as a speaker last evening. They build rockets. They 3 different rockets and they build rockets very quickly, of course, for space and maybe even other applications where engines are needed. Inbound Aerospace, which is also one of the founding team members, is from the Armed Forces. They provide microgravity environments for research, for applications, and could also do very quick cargo logistics going to space and back. InSpacity, which came from academia, this is a professor from IIT Bombay. They're building in-space robotics for both space defense applications and for doing maintenance applications in orbit. And Astrogate Labs, which also has worked with the Indian Navy, where they provide communication services using laser comms for both ground to space and ship to ground terminals as well. I'm just wearing the lens of a capital provider, and there are many things we don't know. So before we give suggestions or comments, I think it's important to display our vulnerability, or what are the things that we don't understand. Many people think, of course, I'm speaking from the capital world, we think that it's a single order, single procurement. Having worked on these technologies for the last 7 to 8 years, we're given to understand that there are many departments and there are many decision makers that make these decisions. So that's an aspect that we just don't understand enough. As investors, we don't understand how go-to-market works. We don't understand how decisions are made and what departments make these decisions. Of course, I'm sure for various reasons of security, it's not amply out there in the open. But that's a lacuna that we operate from. We understand risk and we understand technology progression, but we also don't understand user acceptance, right? And I think technology development and user acceptance have to sort of go hand in hand. So that's the second blind spot out there, which is to say that we know some of our companies are building great tech. We know some of our companies are building nation-critical tech, but we don't know if they are relevant and if they're solving the problem. And the last piece is that, of course, just from de-risking the commercial enterprise, we're always looking for whether there are dual use cases or is it a single vendor product. And also for use cases, if this can go outside the country as well, as long as it's not geosensitive in nature. I'll sort of quickly, in the interest of time, come down to 4 actionable items that can help us capital providers. I think the first is we often don't understand certification enough. In the naive world I live in, if the technology works, it should be bought. But I'm sure there's a lot between a working technology and an adopted technology. And if there are ways in which certification of these technologies can be made amply clear to our founders, then I think our ability to understand and underwrite them become a lot easier. The second actionable point is We know there are critical technologies, but we don't know how much of it is needed. As capital providers, assessing the demand and quantifying the demand is a very important aspect on how we like to underwrite risk. And therefore, anything that can be done to, at least in some closed door formats, help us understand and break down the large defense procurement market to the smaller components so that we're able to understand the criticality of some of these sectors. For example, we invested in quantum technology 6 years ago when it was way ahead of its time. Yes, we took a bold call or a naive call in doing so, but it was still much later that the market evolved for it. There are not enough of us to be naive or to be bold, and therefore for many of us, if there's a way for you to break down these markets, size these markets for us to saying, oh, within quantum security or within UAV or within space, these are the applications, these are the market sizes, this is what we think we will procure or we will need over a period of time. We're not looking for guarantees. I think we're looking here for indications. The third aspect is also, a byproduct of the second point I made. We don't know enough. We're willing to take risk. We're willing to support companies to build. We come from experiences of organization building. But the adoption, the consumer here are people in the room, and we don't know enough of what you need. So if there are opportunities more like this that allow us to have conversations, to get feedback, to understand what you need, to understand what's not working, I think we can take a lot of that learning back to adopt for ourselves. And the last point is certain sectors or certain products that are allowed for exports. I think if there are frameworks there that can be streamlined, that allow us to do it, that's a big win for us. So 4 things: certification, demand assessment, more interaction for us to meet and learn, and the 4th is possibility for export potential. I think these could be great avenues to sort of simplify our lives. My team also went and did some research on what's happening in other parts of the world. I don't want to spend any time on this because I think we're a different country. We have our own needs, and we'll solve it in our own ways. What I do want to leave is I think there are more people like ourselves, and there's more capital available that can be brought to building nation-critical technologies. And I think it's a joint path to walk. There are a few things that can be ironed out, and I think Surakshit Bharat and Vikshit Bharat will be here sooner than later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vishesh. Your points very valid, and I think the most important point that you've left us with is more interaction needs to be done, especially with the venture capitalists, so you get a better view on where to put your money. And even for defense exports, I must tell you, Navy has a very good structure. They have people who are perpetually involved in defense diplomacy, exports, and with my personal experience, I can tell you, with a little bit more interaction, because they are most active as far as exports are concerned. So visibility part, I think, can be improved with a little more interaction. And they are the ones who actually facilitate even the Exim Bank to set aside lines of credit, how to utilize it. The defense attaches a very vibrant lot. So I think that part can also be seen. And now that all 3 of you have given a lot of food for thought, we'll open up for a quick set of questions and answers. So we'll take 3 questions, and my only sincere, humble request is, let it be a question, not a comment. So we can start with the questions in the audience.
So I'm Commander Sagar Mishra. Sir, I will just bring out from Dr. Srivastava sir's statement. Foundation of countries lies in MSMEs and startups. Also, sir mentioned that national interest should play rather than profits. And then coming to Mr. Shashanaman, he told that, he conveyed, we are procuring innovations and which has uncertainties. I'll come to my question, sir. Israel is spending 6% of GDP, that is around $30 billion. USA, 3.5%, $820 billion. China, 2.7%, it is $750 billion. And India, 0.7%, which is only $20 billion. My question is this R&D fund sufficient or appropriate for leapfrogging innovation without shortcuts?
Your question can straight away be answered as no. And the person who has to do it is the government. I don't think the panelists can take a shot at that, but we will still give them a chance. So second question, please.
I am Prabhakar Prantpe. I am from Forum for Integrated National Security. Ours is a national NGO. It's a think tank on national security. I apologize, I don't have a question, but I have a suggestion that we are talking about the Surakshit Bharat 2047, which is in that area we are also working, a lot of brainstorming. We have about large companies as well as small startups engaged into the Surakshit Bharat, about more than 100. There has to be some system which we treat these as our national assets and do all the efforts to strengthen these assets. And maybe like, in the shipping policy, the shipping development fund has come up. Like that, for this defense development and defense technology, or acting towards the Surakshit Bharat, some fund has to be created to help all these things. This is what I feel.
Thank you, Mr. Paranjpe. What I'll do is, your question I'll leave it to Vish to answer when we come to that answering part. Third question.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Commander Dudraj, sir. My question is to Dr. Anurag Srivastav. So as you brought out regarding the funding gap, sir, the requirement of defense is very specific. And though a lot of R&D has been undertaken with respect to development of prototypes, however, being the limited scope which is involved and the requirements are specific, sir, the venture capitalists who are there will be having very small margin with respect to profits. And it is very difficult for a venture capitalist also to envisage the return on investment that they are doing. So in your view, sir, how we can counter it, and is it a good idea to commercialize the defense product which can be used and vice versa, sir?
Okay. So, Anurag, you can take the question. Thereafter, Vish, you can take the question. My sincere request to the people asking questions, please keep it short so that more people get a chance.
Okay, so I've a little bit on first question and then the final question. On the first question, which was about saying whether defense budget is less or more, sir has already answered it. But I think I want to get the realism. If ISRO can build something in 1/10 of the cost of what US builds, that's an inspiration. So let's not forget, and I'm not defining or denying the fact that we need more money to invest, but do we invest, do we have enough right now to try? Let me tell you, the Indian talent is sharp enough to innovate. And he talked about frugality, and the VC also knows that we can do that cost asymmetry in innovation itself. So I think the budget can be increased, but that doesn't mean that it is not sufficient for us to innovate it for future. Our dependencies, as I said, the sensors, the base technology are still to be imported, and that becomes costly. An Israeli camera is 25 lakhs. The LiDAR is 78 lakhs. Now that builds the cost much higher for an autonomous system, not what we can do if we could build these capabilities. And can it be built in lesser cost here? 100%. Is that talent existing? Is the capability of the young guys existing in it? People are investing in it? Yes. I think all my VC friends and industry guys will be ready to come forward because they see it as dual market. And that's what the answer leading to your third question, the answer will be exactly that. Yes, you may have a limited problem, very specific looking to you, but I think, and our special he touched the point that if you allow a dual use to the friendly countries they export, the market is still pretty much big, which we can build upon. So when you talk about some of those limited scope technologies that you're talking, and innovation at a system level is different, which you will integrate, and people talked about that. But there are components in it which are still going to be outside, and it can be used in multiple different kind of dual purpose usage. So if we are building for Navy something, let's take, and I'll take a concrete example. If you're talking about some missile system, I'm taking the extreme example, the propulsion engine of that, the propulsion component of that, the impact of aerodynamics of it has a different implication onto the dual use as well. And the question is that your system, your spec in defense is different, but can it be used? I'll take an extremely different example, and I have an afternoon meeting there. If you look at we have, many people don't know, but we have the simulation of how do we play, games and, war games, etc. So that's a gaming engine. And you all do that. You all have a training. You all are saying at how in the seas you are going to be looking at fighting in the dimensions, and you have your training rooms. Different 8 centers exist in Navy where you go and look at different things. In Army, there are different scenario. Again, 8 units or some centers where tell that how do you look at the border situations. It's exactly like a gaming technology, with AI and ML to be advanced in it. Now the question is there a dual use? Is there a specific app? Yes, and that's a precise example on which I am discussing right now. Is there a startup which is interested? Yes, it will put it whole bet behind. Will especially come forward to it? It'll say 100%, because there is a different dimension to it. Keep the proprietary stuff inside. Keep the dimension of technology that could be dual use, and I think we will be able to play. Yes, frugality, it's an important point, and India can do it. We have done it in ISRO, so I think we should not be just too much felt by that, but we have people like him who will still increase the budget, so I look forward to that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just touching on that first question, and then I'll go to the second one. The Indian telecom revolution, I think we went from 15, 20 million wireline telephone connections to about 1 billion mobile telco connections, right? That was not fueled by government overspend on infrastructure. It was just opening up deregulating the telecom market, allowing market forces to play, and capital came in, right? We've done that with e-commerce. We've done that with digital India, digital banking, digital payment. We're at population scale. And that didn't happen because the top 5 banks in the country was pulled up by Reserve Bank of India and Ministry of Finance saying, well, we need population scale digital payments and digital banking. No, startups, right? So I think we have that opportunity today to leverage entrepreneurial innovation, venture capital, to bring in national scale transformation. So yes, 0.5% looks very low. It has to be much higher. But it's not just the quantum of the money, it's also how you utilize the money, how you allocate, and what do you do with that money. I think there's a lot of success stories in the very immediate past that we can actually learn, and I think if we can bring some of those principles into play, into defense, into strategic tech, and of course ISRO is a shining example, how you connect, how you vertically integrate the lab all the way to the mission, I think is something that the defense can take a leaf out of. And I think we can do that. So that's to that question. On Sir's question about funding, we have the ANRF. It's the 100,000 crores, announcement. That's definitely. I mean, Vishesh and myself, we're all going to be in the queue up, putting in our applications and trying to get as much capital out of that as possible, so that we can deploy either as a VC or as an AIF or as a focused research organization, which is what Forge will be, or I'm sure IASC will have a role to play. So I think there's a lot of money, there's a lot of intent, and there's the government is definitely putting money where its mind is, also its mouth is, and which is good. So that's a lot of money that we can see. And just to add to Vishesh's point about if the private sector, the venture capital sector, the capital sector can actually get a sense of what the opportunity is of the defense strategic sectors, whether it's defense, whether it's national security, and then the export market, I think a lot more positivity will be there. where we actually will see many of these IDEX startups, which actually start as defense first. And my every intention has been, since we started IDEX, to quickly move these startups from being defense first to defense also, before they fall into this valley of death called defense only, right? So there are, thanks to IDEX, we've got what, close to about anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 defense first startups. What does it mean? It means some of India's top engineers, technologists, scientists, ex-DRDO, ISRO scientists are actually saying, I will build for defense. I will develop technology, but I'll try to translate that into military capabilities, defense, national security capabilities. So that's a good sign. Now, how we back it with the intent to, and the capital, and then provide them the pathways for scaling, for growing, for exporting. I think all of that, if it comes together, we can make 1 + 1 = 11. I'll leave it there.
Vishesh, you have anything to add? Okay. The points are very valid, and whatever both of them have said is fine. But I still want to say that there has to be a differentiation in our understanding between research and innovation. You know, these two things, please do not mix up. And the funding for innovation is different, and deep research is something different, but there still 0.5% is not adequate. And as our economy keeps progressing, that 0.5% also is bound to increase, or that is how we should be using. And that is where the users, in particular the stakeholders, should raise these issues through various fora, whether it is through academia, whether it is through think tanks, but that has to be made to reach the decision makers. So that is, I think, still a very valid point there. Okay, next set of 3 questions, please.
Sir, Commander Menon here, sir. This side.
Go ahead, we can see you on the screen.
Sir, I am from Indian Navy's Center for Indigenization and Self-Reliance. And my question is to General, sir. And this is in the context of no-cost, no-commitment trials, the NCNC trials, which we expect from the industries. Now, there have been a lot of efforts towards in DAP for eliminating these NCNC trials, so that we pay for the research and the hard work which is being done by the firm and not insist on a NCNC trials. And in DAP 20, most of those aspects were taken off, and NCNC trials, the word NCNC did not find any mention in DAP, sir. But in the recently published DPM, which was just published a month back, it was NCNC trials have found their way newly in. DPM never spoke about NCNC trials earlier, sir, but in the present DPM, especially in the chapter on indigenization, there is an insistence and expectation of no cost, no commitment trials from the industry. So what I would like to know is 2 parts, sir. Is there a possibility of this NCNC trials finding its way back into DAP again? Second is, what is industry's outlook on these NCNC trials? And last but not the least, if NCNC trials are not part of the philosophy of expecting things from the private industry, is there a way to amend the DPM to take out these NCNC trials within 6 months?
Okay. Straight away, the answer to this is, before we go to the other 2 questions, is no policy, process or charter is cast in stone. Even if it has been issued now, there is always a door open to amend it. You know, these policies, processes are very carefully evaluated and pen put to paper. But if there is a genuine concern, it is always open to amendment. So there is nothing that has closed, and I understand the concern about NCNC trials, and especially the startups who are from hand to mouth. It's very difficult for them. While the big ones can do it, but the small ones have a problem. I do understand your concern, and I do share that. And I leave it to the users in particular to look at it, because if you're not going to look at the sensitivities of the startups, that culture will soon die. And that is what we cannot afford to do. Next 2 questions, please.
Sir, I'm Brigadier Agrawal, and I'm DACID's Indigenization Headquarter IDS. My question would be to Mr. Vishesh. Is there a case in point of having a fund of fund wherein government has its own share put in, and the industry, the big players, as well as the venture capitalists, they also put in their share? We create a fund of 2,000, 4,000, whatever crore we can create. And will this be able to obviate the concerns which you have with respect to the visibility of the orders and the risks which are involved? Is there a case in point for the same?
Okay, let's go to the 3rd question, please.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Reena Mamkin here. I'm from DRDO, scientist. My question is for Mr. Vish. So there are 2 points. One point is I would like to bring out there is some gap which we are sensing in chapter 2 of DAP 2020 where indigenous sources are mentioned. So in that case, there could be indigenous from backed by DRDO and industry partner is manufacturing or ready for production orders. And the other one is which is already established import thing which is getting indigenized by local industry. So in this, the gap is the 2 paths are really different. I mean, the one which is taken by a real Bharatiya for Bharat ki, for Bharat and Bharatiya Bhavna, as our Honorable Defense Minister has told, that path is really long in terms of certification and then acceptance trials by users and all. But the other one path is little easy because it is more towards cognitive ease by the user, I feel. Because it has already been used outside, abroad, and these 2 paths generally, our industry partners have many times returned to us. This is the issue. Second problem is what I wanted to bring out, especially for your feedback. I was a team leader from DRDO for IDEX and NAVDEX 25 during this February at Abu Dhabi. And I would like to give you that our Indian pavilion was placed in a very, very low profile at the last corner in the NAVDEX. And all the visitors, especially international and all, who wanted to collaborate or come to us, they have told that they found it difficult to trace us. Whereas the adversaries or other small countries, they have a very good pavilion in a very strategic place. So this has to be actually taken care in future because it doesn't give us very importance and really for defense thing.
Thank you, madam. Fund of funds, you can take that one.
Yeah, I think, thank you for that question. I think the short answer is it's a thumping yes. I think the case in point example is set up of what was called the National Quantum Mission, NQM, which actually allows for that mission or that entity to make investments in startups. For an investor like me looking at my lens, I think it's a welcome because then we're finding a partner with equal risk reward on the table. That is equally motivated in making sure the technology reaches the end user hands and gets adopted. So in any way, shape or form, if there is equity capital, we're not looking for subsidies, we're not looking for grants. In any way, shape or form, if there is some level of sharing of ownership of risk, and therefore appreciating the time it takes for it to commercialize, I think it's a big welcome. Thank you.
What Ms. Mamgain wanted to know, you can answer that.
So madam, you had 2 questions. I'll take the first one later. The second one, yes, I will convey that feedback. I see, Kanlan Mahala and Daya, both project directors of IDEX right here. I think it's obviously, it's a no-brainer that there should have been a reason why whatever happened. I think we need to just look at it and understand. But yeah, fair point. I think we need to take that. On your first question, ma'am, can I request that instead of me answering that question, I will ask another very good friend of mine who's an expert and for whom I have conferred my own honorary doctorate degree in procurement. His name is Professor Dr. Commodore R.K. Kamboj. He's right here. And I personally rely on him for anything which has to do with DAP or DPM. So may I expect that we have this conversation during lunch, and I'm sure he will be able to illuminate you, enlighten you on this topic way more than I am. I'm a kindergarten student there. He's the PhD.
Thank you, Vish. The point about fund of funds, I just wanted to highlight to, headquarter IDS is grappling with that, I understand, but there have been many initiatives or efforts to get this in place, whether you call it a defense bank or you use the offset money pooled in together, everything has been tried out, but somehow the Ministry of Finance has not been very forthcoming in that. So if at all this is something which is again coming up, I would request headquarter IDS to be the nodal agency to push it forward, because the requirement is there, all of us understand, and nothing short of a presentation and a discussion with the Honorable Finance Minister has happened. But you obviously have a very valid point, so I think this needs to be again taken up. And when it was taken to the Finance Ministry, obviously, Ministry of Defense was very much part of the discussion. So I think this is a good idea and it can be taken ahead. You look at many other ministries, everyone has created some kind of a bank. What is wrong with having, this is a thought, but you can take it ahead.
So if I can just add to,
yes,
add to that. See, globally, if you look at what happens in the private sector, there is this corporate innovation, corporate startup accelerator, corporate venture capital. So these are large industrial majors who deploy their balance sheet cash into a funding vehicle or a funding or a fund, which then invest just like any VC will invest, right? I think the DPSUs should be looked at that as an opportunity. They don't have to really come in as a buyer or as an integrator or as a manufacturer. They should just be looking at it purely from a corporate venture capital lens point of view. And we have some sizable balance sheets, which obviously are growing, given the surge in demand, both local as well, both domestic as well as global exports. So I think that's also something that we can tap into.
Good idea. In fact, Vish, the same fund has been utilized to provide some funds to the defense attaches who've been holding events abroad. So I think that's a very good idea.
I mean, the Lockheeds and the Boeings and the Airbuses, the Raytheons of the world have been doing this for decades, right? And you take the automotive sector, you take the aerospace sector, all the private commercial industrial sectors. The manufacturers, the OEs don't innovate. The innovation happens in the supply chain. And if you have to have preemptive access to some of these emerging futuristic technologies, then you just can't wait for the commercial procurement to happen, a decade or more later. How do you have access to those companies as a shareholder? That preventive access is something that is there in the toolkit of all the large corporate, transformation, handbooks. That's something we can tap into as well.
Thank you, Vish. And much that we all would have wanted to continue with the question and answer, but I've already got a slip to say we are out of time. And in the end, while I congratulate the panel for having done such a wonderful job, I also want to end this session with the note to thank the Indian Navy and especially ACNSSR and the TDAC team led by SK Singh. Wonderful job. Thank you so much for doing such a wonderful job.
Thank you to all the esteemed panelists for enlightening words and the depth you brought to this session. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving them a huge round of applause. May I now request Vice Admiral A.Y. Sardesai, Inspector General Nuclear Safety, to kindly come up on stage and felicitate the panelists. Lieutenant General V.G. Khandare. Dr. Anurag Srivastava. Mr. Vishwa Sahasranam. And Mr. Vishesh Rajaram. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we draw the curtains on 2 remarkable days of Swavlamban-2025. These days have not just been an event, but a journey of ideas, innovation, and collective resolve. Each session, each demonstration, and each conversation has reaffirmed one simple truth, that the path to Atmanirbhar Bharat becomes stronger when we walk it together. सोच जब समर्थ हो जाए, राष्ट्र की राह चमक उठती है, और हौसला जब साथ चले तो हर मंजिल आसान लगती है. We extend our heartfelt appreciation to all speakers, innovators, and delegates who have contributed to making Swavlamban 2025 meaningful and memorable. Your presence has enriched the dialogue, and your ideas will help steer the course of our nation's technological future. As we conclude, let us carry forward the energy, the intent, and the commitments that these 2 days have ignited. On behalf of Indian Navy and the Naval Innovation and Indigenization Organization, we thank you once again for your participation, enthusiasm, and support. Everyone is requested to kindly proceed for lunch from top left and right doors now. Speakers, dignitaries, and officers of rank Commodore and above are requested to proceed to the upper portico for lunch, and other guests may proceed kindly to the banquet dining area. We wish you a pleasant evening and look forward to meeting you again on the next edition of Swavlamban. Thank you. Jai Hind.